Before we begin the formal agenda, there's two or three things I just need to bring to your attention. The meeting will be live streamed on YouTube. So if any member of the public attending the meeting objects to being filmed, please advise us immediately and we will ensure that they are not included in the filming. Although, I stress, the public gallery will not feature in the live stream and the public speakers will only be filmed from behind where they are seated and their faces will not be visible. So can I just take a moment, if anyone is concerned about appearing on a YouTube version of this meeting? No, that's fine. Thank you very much for that. So that's that. Secondly, we normally have two working screens. Unfortunately, at the moment, we've only got one working screen that you can see from the public. Although the TVs help those who are sat behind them. But members, you haven't got a working screen here that is probably the most comfortable for you to refer to. And I'm not sure whether I need to read the reminder of how to use the Cue to Speak facility. I think just essentially just press the button and wait to be called by me. So I will now begin the formal agenda by seeking from Christine apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Carol Ball, Councillor Rachel Hood and Councillor Laura Miller-Jones.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I have an indication of substitutes, please? Councillor Chung.
Substitute for Councillor Carol Ball.
Thank you very much indeed. And Councillor Armitage. Thank you, Councillor. We have another substitute that may be joining us, but I don't think he's arrived in the building just yet. If he arrives before the first item is presented, he will be able to take part in that discussion and debate. If he doesn't, he won't be allowed to. Right, turning our attention to the minutes of the meeting on the 7th of August. Any comments or corrections, please, from the committee may have noted? I've noted one, and it is just a typographical error, so it's a minor correction. On page 3, the 5th paragraph from the bottom, second to last sentence, there is a who in there, and that just needs to be removed. On that basis, can I have a proposer for the minutes, please? Councillor Whittam. And a seconder, please. Councillor London. So accepting the minor amendment. Oh, and Councillor Speed has arrived. Thank you, Councillor Speed. So with that minor typographical amendment, can I see a show of hands in favour of approving the minutes, please? Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Chair. The minutes of the meeting are agreed.
Thank you very much indeed. Right. Next item on the agenda is the declarations of interest. And for clarity, I would just like to read the statement. And members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest, other registrable or non-registrable interests which they have in any item of business on the agenda, and that must be no later than when the item is reached, and when appropriate to leave the meeting prior to discussion and voting on that item. So could I see if there are any members? Councillor Glossop, please.
Yes, please. Application for Newmarket Benefit Tax on BC 230654. I will be speaking, obviously, as the ward member. It could be perceived that I have already made my mind up, so I will not be taking part in the debate. I will not be voting, and I will leave the room. Thank you very much.
So just to be clear, that is about the integrity of the committee.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Having said that, did I need to remind members to press the button to speak? That's okay. Yes, that's okay. Councillor Sayer, please.
Yes, I wish to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 6, which is DC 240174 at the All Saints Hotel.
And the rationale for that declaration is?
Pardon
The rationale for your declaration
is that I have commented on this many times before.
Okay, so it's about the integrity
Yes.
of the committee. Okay, thank you very much indeed. And Councillor Chester, please.
Thank you, Chair. Brief statement. On Monday, the 2nd of September, I received an email from Claire Kennedy in the legal department citing my comment on the planning portal regarding agenda item 7 and the potential for being predetermined. The phrase in question was, "This unattractive concrete structure is better suited to replacement rather than retrofit to a modern standard," which, if taken in isolation, could infer predetermination. This was never my intention, as I was and remain non-predetermined. However, as this has been raised by legal, and should this committee go against the offer recommendation if refused on this application, there hangs the thread of were the proceedings blighted by a predetermined committee member. As a consequence, I reserve my right to speak as a ward member on this item, but will not take part in the debate or the vote. I reiterate being non-predetermined, but merely seek to ensure the integrity of the decision-making process within this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Chester. That's similar rationale to both Councillor Glossop and Councillor Sayer. Thank you very much indeed. And I've got Councillor Holder, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just following Councillor Glossop's point of view, that it be hard for me not to know the applicant, which is George Gittis, personally, and obviously his industry locally, as I've been a councillor here for 20 years, and he is an employer and a well-known personality in the area. I tried to avoid certain public meetings that were called at Risby, where the matter was discussed, and where Mr. Gittis was in attendance. However, I couldn't avoid at the Saxons Parish Council, because as ward member I'm expected to attend as many as I can, and Mr. Gittis is sometimes there. Previously, of course, over the 20 years I've been the ward member, his father was in attendance, and in fact was a parish councillor, so quite aware of the influence that the family has on that particular part of the area. However, I try to keep myself as pure as possible. People might not think that's possible, but the fact is we're supposed to read the papers and all the rest of it, but quite frankly I have to be here on behalf of the comments that the Saxon Parish Council have said, and I'll take it on advisement at the time from our officer if she believes I'm straying from that point of view, if I'm allowed to speak as a member of the committee. I have told the chair already that I would like to speak as a member of the committee, but are quite happy to listen to what my colleagues on the committee have to say before I may comment or interject, if that's okay. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Holder. I think if you were to have a non-registrable interest, that would mean that you were there would be a financial interest or a well-being of a relative or a close associate. So if you don't feel that the applicant is a close associate and obviously not a relative, then we could discount the non-registrable interest. It would be along the lines of the other declarations in terms of, you know, you feel that there could be a perception of bias. So depending on what you're going to say in your speech as ward member, you know, then I think if you are taking a balanced view and you have an open mind and only you know that, the advice is always if you feel that you have already expressed a preference and you know, an ordinary member, a well-informed member of the public would think you were predetermined or biased, that is when, you know, you should not take part in the debate or vote. So that's my advice, and I think we'll just have to, yeah, it's, you know, only you know. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Can I just skip back to item 2? Councillor Speed, can you just confirm who you're substituting for, please?
Good morning, Chair. I'm substituting for Rachel Hood.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, I think we now move on to these applications on the agenda, and we've got at item 5, we've got land off Newmarket Road, Great Saxham, and Gary Hancock is the presenting officer, and I'd invite Gary to begin his presentation, please.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Yes, as you say, this application relates to land off Newmarket Road, Great Saxham, and the application is for a new steel storage processing distribution facility, along with associated infrastructure, parking and landscaping. The application is referred to Development Control Committee as it is a major application of significant scale, and both the Saxhams and Risby Parish Councils strongly object to the application. And just to let you know, a committee site visit took place on the 30th of August.
Excuse me a second. The first, yes. What, was that anything to do with our sound system, or was that an external? It's external. Okay.
So yeah, moving on. So the site. This is a wider location slide for you to show the site location within the district. The site is located just to the south of the A14, and obviously to the west of Bury St Edmunds, and this is Wesley Village located here. Risby Village is to the north, located here, and the Saxhams, this is Little Saxham here, located to the south, and the village of Barrow is located here. And there's also a railway line which runs just to the south of the site. In terms of parish boundaries, the vast majority of the site is located in the Saxhams parish. However, you'll see that a small portion of the site is which is basically the footpath connections over at the junction, is located in Risby parish. And just for completeness, you can also see Wesley parish and Barrow parish in that slide. So in terms of the location of the site, it's outlined in red for you here. A little bit complicated because it's, as you can see, so the red line is the outline of the site, which is, most of it is here. This indeed is where the buildings will go. It also includes the site access of the existing junction arrangement here. As I mentioned, it also includes this area here, which is for improvements to the footpath along that road, and that's the section that's in Risby parish. And it also includes this red line here, which is part of the footpath improvements, which I'll come on to, and this red line here, which is part of the drainage proposals, as in this would link to a drainage basin here, and that's how they then discharge that from the site. There's another slide in a second which shows you this in a bit more detail, but this is the site layout overall. So as you can see, access is through here via this access road here, past this site here, which is the members may note, and a lot of the public will probably note as well, that this is the site of the lorry park permission, located here. And then buildings proposed here and here. And then at this end of the site, there is supposed to be a drainage basin. The areas surrounding the building in this location are for open storage racking. Parking is located up here, and the main entrance to the building is located here. This is a slightly more zoomed in picture for you, so you can see the access to parking. Main entrance, that's a covered storage area. These are open storage areas. This is a merchant shed building, and then this is the main production shed building. And as you can see the railway line to the south, and you can also see the A14 to the north. And beyond that, you can also see Newmarket Road. That's better. Newmarket Road, which is, this forms a lot of the traffic coming off the A14. This runs into the junction to come over the A14 itself, but then also goes into Risby via South Street, which is just further up here, which I'll come on to shortly. Just some visuals now for you of the site and its surroundings. You'll see on most of these slides there'll be an image down here with an arrow which indicates where the picture was taken from. So here you can see we're at the proposed site entrance. This is the existing entrance to Simmons Farm and the complex down here and the anaerobic digester, which is located to the south here. And this is the proposed entrance for this site. But I'll try my best. I don't have taken at this point. So we're on top of the A14, looking towards the site. The site is located here in the distance, so beyond this tree belt. So this is the lorry park site, and the site we're talking about now is beyond these trees, running in that direction. Here's an image taken on the A14, looking eastbound. As you can see, the site is located to the right-hand side here. You can see the cutting and the different levels. Obviously, Risby is to the left in this picture, and the site itself is at a higher level than the road, albeit not quite at the same level as the top of the banking. So you can see that it would be set behind those existing vegetation in that image. Looking the other way, taken from this viewpoint here, slightly more open in this element, as you can see. Moving further down to look at this end of the site, and this is where the main production building would be, or part of it at least. And as you can see, there are existing trees in this location. Obviously, this is taken in autumn, winter time. So you'll get more views of the site here, but obviously during summer, there'll be more glimpsed views, if you like, and more screening provided by those trees. I'm now looking westbound from the other end of the site. And again, it's similar appearance. It'll be set behind these trees. We'll now move on to a couple of videos taken. Members recall we did visit these sites during the site visit on the 30th of August. So this video is taken from this point here, from the public right-of-way. There's a public track which stops there, and then there's a public right-of-way begins. And this is taken from that. So yeah, so the site obviously is in front of you here. That's the White House, the pub, White Horse, I believe. And so the site is in front of you here, and you can just about make out here the buildings of Risby Business Park. And again, this one's taken slightly further away from the public right-of-way in this location here. And again, the site is directly in front of you now, in the distance, well beyond that water tower that you can see, because that's where we were before. Just to give you an indication of the topography of the land there, and also of the direct context around the site. Moving on now to some various visualizations submitted with the application, which I think is important to have a look at. Again, many of these were viewed from during the site visits. Just to explain what's happening here, we've got this dotted line here. The red dotted line indicates where the buildings and the site would be visible, albeit it's dashed because it would be partially visible, set obviously with intervening landscape features, etc. So this is the view from north of Newmarket Road and the A14, and obviously the site runs between roughly between these 2 points in that image. This is the site from the right of way to the west of Risby. This is a winter view. It's split in two parts simply because I can't fit it all on one screen image. But you can see the White Horse Public House, the Risby truck stop at this location, Tweeds plantation up here, which effectively marks the sort of western end of the site, effectively. So the site is, as you can see, stretches all across here, but obviously still partly visible due to intervening landscaping features on the boundary of the site. And it moves around, and there's Risby Business Park. So effectively, that was the video that you saw panning around in winter time. This is taken here at this location, near close to the water tower, to the west of Risby. Again, moving on to Risby Business Park. Let's just give. A winter view from south of Risby.
We have got problems again, Lewis. I'm sorry about this. And Gary's mic keeps resetting because on my screen here, you know.
Yes, I'm turning it on and off again.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Fix it. Is it working now, Gary?
Yep, I think so. Yep, thank you. Yeah, so that's the site from southwest of Risby. And this is, again, that's a similar view, but this time in summer, just as it gives you the indication that there is more screening of the site during the summer months. We now move round to the south of the site. This is the long distance view which we visited during the committee site visit. I've simply put this because the topography of the land is quite differently on this side. But this is a viewpoint where you would see the site in context with the existing built form of Simmons Farm and adjacent buildings there, and the site itself is in this location. So you get glimpsed views of it in the distance from that location. As I say, as you move around that area, a lot of the site is masked because of the topography of the land. We now move directly south on the footpath closer to the site. And what this indicates here is the buildings would clearly be more visible now as you come close to the site. So you've got a mixture of buildings being completely visible in the landscape, partially screened by existing landscaping, and then again fully visible from that viewpoint. Albeit, obviously, when there are crops in that area, the site is to a large degree screened, but again, they will still be visible from that location during the year. Now moving on to an aerial perspective of the site. Hopefully this is very helpful to give you an idea of how the buildings will sit within the site and the wider landscape. So as you can see, I'll start at this end of the site. There's the proposed drainage lagoon. Here's the open racking storage. This is the merchant shed building. Covered storage area here, and then obviously the main production shed building. In terms of distances, this building is 300 metres long and 130 metres wide, with a height of around about 16 metres. These are existing agricultural or storage buildings, I think, on the Newmarket Road. There's a lorry park there. That's the pub, disused pub. And there's also a cafe there as well. And residential properties, I will point out, at this location. These are some of the nearest ones to the site. obviously before you then get to Risby, and there are a couple of residential properties to the south of the site as well. That's the aerobic digestion plant, and the rest is Simmons Farm. So hopefully that's a good image to give you the context of the site with the built form as well. This is the front entrance to the site, again shown at this location. Gives you an indication of the sort of design and the colouring of the proposed building. And again, just to reiterate, this is roughly 16 metres in terms of height to the to the top of the roof. So this element here is probably actually 15 metres or thereabouts. And also in this image, you can see where the proposed acoustic bunding would be going. Sorry, acoustic fencing, obviously with the A14 on the other side of this image. Here's a section across the site which I thought would be quite helpful. This is the site itself and the production shed. In the cutting here, you can see the A14. As I mentioned, the site itself is elevated above road level. In the distance, you can see the flyover bridge dropping down into Risby Village, which is located here. You then have the railway line located here. And then moving across, you've got the existing Simmons Farm complex. So hopefully that gives you an idea of levels across the site in context with the A14 and the railway line. As I mentioned, this is the production shed. Its height is 16.5 metres to the highest part of the barrel roof, with extending to some 300 metres in length and 130 metres in width. The merchant shed is a similar size, 16 metres to the highest part of the barrel roof, and again of a similar sort of appearance, materials and construction. And that's the other elevation, and this shows you the sort of barrelled roof approach to the construction. And this is the other elevation. This is the south elevation, as in to the south of the site, viewed from the Simmons Farm direction. And again, that gives you an indication of the proposed sort of colour scheme for the building. This is an image to show you the typical acoustic fence details, and they are set at 5 metres between here. So this is if you remember, I showed you the image of that just to the north of the production shed buildings. That's where I come onto the site layout. That will indicate, that will show you the extent of this bunding, but it runs pretty much the entire length of the northern boundary of the site. Now I'll move on to the noise section, which is a couple of slides just to give you a summary of the noise impacts from the development. They're obviously in much more detail in the report, but I thought it'd be helpful to show you these images as a comparison. So on the left, we have these are noise contours. So what these show are the predicted noise levels, and then set out as contour maps with colouring. So what's on the left here, you can see the proposed buildings, the production shed and the merchant shed. And what that shows here is clearly the higher noise activity and levels will be within the building. And this also, because of the mitigation proposed, it shows that the majority of the sound is contained within the site. On the right-hand side image, it shows the existing average noise levels, obviously particularly in relation to the A14. Now, just to point out that these haven't been overlaid on here because clearly everything would disappear in a sea of red and you wouldn't be able to distinguish the production building. But what this does indicate is that the noise levels from the building, firstly, are contained due to a large degree by the proposed mitigation. But secondly, it also shows that they're no higher than the existing noise levels from the A14 on average. Of course, there will be odd occasions when you will hear noise from the buildings, But what this survey shows that in this case, during the night time, the noise will not be above existing background levels in the vast majority of cases. And then a similar example during daytime. Again, here, there is a difference here because there's more noise coming externally during the daytime in this location. But again, mitigated for by the acoustic fencing. And again, it shows the existing noise levels, daytime noise levels on average from the A14, and the fact that the predicted noise levels from the buildings themselves will not, generally speaking, will not exceed the existing background levels. So that's a very, very broad brush summary of that, but hopefully that's helpful. Moving on to this is the footpath enhancements section of the presentation for you. This is to show you what's being proposed in terms of sustainable transport links. And what we have here is two elements. Firstly, in orange, we have provision of a new footpath within land under the applicant's control, which continues. So basically where the current footpath runs across the site, I should have perhaps pointed this out earlier actually, but there is a footpath which crosses the site existing and in actual fact does cross over the A14, although I don't believe it's used much in that regard. But what this proposes is to divert that path across here, and then firstly there's then the footpath will then carry on over the A14 to join in with South Street and Risby beyond, but also a new section of footpath is then created to the south to join up with the existing bridleway in this location here. And then the second part of the proposals is a financial contribution to allow the creation of this footpath to then head on to Westley to connect the site to Westley and then beyond. That would be provided for by the Suffolk County Council, as I say, with the benefit of a financial contribution from the applicant. So in slightly more detail, this is the connection down to the bridleway within land under the applicant's control. And this is the connection over an existing railway bridge, just running off the actual access point here and then continuing over with an improved footpath on the existing road that then leads down to South Street here. So just before I move now on to summary of the comments and representations received and my officer comments, I just wanted a correction in the report. Paragraph 278 of my report should refer to paragraph 275 and not 265. It refers you back to some mitigation, but the numbering is wrong there. So where the numbering says 265 presently, it should actually refer to paragraph 275. So in terms of a summary of the comments received, Saxon's Parish Council object to the development on the grounds that the agricultural land involved has no commercial or industrial designation, increased noise with extra heavy traffic and light pollution from the 24-hour operation of the business. And they feel it's not possible to reduce this loss of amenity to an acceptable level. Risby Parish Council object to the application. Again, they feel that it will result in an irreversible loss of best, most versatile land. In this case, it's grade 3A agricultural land. And the site area is 12 hectares, and therefore 12 hectares of that would be lost. A significant detrimental impact on the character and visual amenity of the landscape, which will take 15 years to mitigate. And then with significant impact on the local highway network due to increased HGV movements. They also mentioned about noise impact from industrial processes. We've also received comments from the MP for West Suffolk, Nick Timothy, which I'll now summarise here. He comments the proposal will have a detrimental impact on the peace and environment of the rural farming area, and the application is contrary to the local plan policy LP18. That's an emerging local plan policy Our current local equivalent local plan policy is DM5. There'll be a loss of best and most versatile agricultural land. There's been no proper study of the nocturnal impact of floodline lighting within the application. And there will be an adverse immediate impact in terms of light, noise and traffic for local residents in the area, obviously affecting their quality of life. He also mentioned about local traffic impact from lorries with bulky loads that were likely to use the A14 bridge and take a shortcut through the centre of Risby. I will now also receive an additional comment from Nick Timothy, received on the 2nd of September, but the only additional point he makes is this one, and that in his judgment, the proposal risks a permanent transformation of the area around Saxham and Risby into a loud and congested heavy industrial zone in which the peaceful nature of these beautiful and historic villages and their surroundings risks being lost forever. Moving on to local residents' comments. They again refer to traffic impact, particularly on South Street and Risby, noise impact from the 24-hour industrial process, harmful visual impact, light pollution, a lack of community engagement by the applicant. There will be a precedent set for future industrial development in a village location, and that the business is not acceptable in a rural setting with the loss of agricultural land, and again, overall, an adverse impact on the quality of life of the residents of Risby. Now moving on to a summary of the statutory consultee comments received. So National Highways, they have considered the impact on the A14 itself and its junctions, and they have no objection to the application. County Highways, as local highway authority, have no objection, subject to appropriate conditions, including a condition for appropriate signage to direct HGV drivers to depart the site westbound only on the A14. This would avoid the need then to go over and use South Street on the way in or on the way out. Suffolk County Council Flood and Water have a holding objection, which is referred to in my report, as currently insufficient information has been submitted to the LLFA to assess the application. And without that, they can't be satisfied that there would not be an increase in flood risk elsewhere. County Archaeology, they raised no objection to the application, just subject to a condition for a programme of archaeological work in accordance with the written scheme of investigation, clearly obviously be undertaken before work commences on any approved development. The Environment Agency raised no objection, subject to appropriate conditions. Natural England, they raised no objection, subject to appropriate mitigation being secured. Again, that's set out in the report for you. Our own Ecology and Landscape Officer has assessed the proposal, and that provided appropriate mitigation is in place to protect the stone curlew in this case, as part of the Breckland SPA, secured by a condition. There have been no adverse effects on the integrity of the SPA and indeed the SAC, which is Special Area Conservation. Turning to our own economic development team, they support the proposal, which represents growth and an increase in jobs. And they make the point that if the applicant is unable to find an alternative location in West Suffolk, it would obviously be a disappointment to potentially lose a company that did start in this district. Our own Environmental Health Officer has studied in detail the noise impact assessments, and in particular, obviously, the later one, the Sharps Acoustics report, and agree that it's robust and agree with the conclusion, and subject to the acoustic mitigation proposed, which includes the acoustic fencing, which I mentioned, the predicted noise levels would not produce an adverse impact. So in terms of summary, in actual fact, before I move on to the summary, I probably should move to some late representations that I've received from members of the public. I'll basically summarise these as best I can. The first one has been received from Jane Tracy from Risby Place in Risby. And she comments that despite being near the A14, we are a countryside village. They're deeply concerned that an industrial site may be built on the doorstep of this village. Concerned about noise that the site will generate. And whilst the residents are used to the background hum of the A14, the proposed noise would be completely different, with crashing, scraping, banging and grinding noises, etc. And this would be 24 hours a day, and these noises would completely change the nature of our village. Concerned about the density of traffic on the overbridge, and also the creation of a roundabout on this bend with lorries having to stop and start on a hill will lead to long delays and congestion. And they don't feel that Highways has properly considered that in its comments. She also makes the point that AGN steel stock will be a much higher order of magnitude of industrialisation than any other business in the surrounding area. And there's no other similar comparable businesses in the location. And again, it would set a precedent for the area. Another precedent would be the loss of 12 hectares of agricultural land. And finally, they feel that this village is completely unsuitable for an industrialised operation to be built so close to it. I have another comment from a Leanne Bartholomew, again a resident of Risby. It's quite lengthy, but I am going to just briefly summarise it. Concern again about increased noise levels, but they also mention about long-term exposure to noise causing health effects as well, including sleep disturbance, etc. Also contributes towards global warming, transportation and processing plants in that regard. Urban sprawl is mentioned as well, and also concerns about increased nitrogen dioxide levels, obviously clearly in connection with noise pollution and dust particles, and obviously the medical effects that can cause, including asthma, etc. Increased air pollution, as I say. Light pollution as well, which then could go on to cause sleep deprivation, fatigue, stress, anxiety, and other health problems. Impacts on insects as well, in terms of that then impacting on further bird species in the area. That's due to lighting. The infrastructure leading to and from the site is not fit for purpose, particularly in regard to South Street in Risby. And then finally, there's a mention about lorries going through the village as well, including passing the primary school and the danger that would bring. The Saxons Parish Council also sent another late representation, and they just basically state that parish councils have engaged with the applicants to fully comprehend what their proposals and operations are. They want to note, or members to note, that some 176 residents of Risby and the Saxons have objected to the application, including the MP. To the significant scale of the proposed B2 industrial use, its proximity to the settlements of Risby and Little Saxham. The negative amenity impact, I've already mentioned that. And there are appropriate zones that West Suffolk Council has already created elsewhere where this sort of development should be located. And they feel that the application must be determined in accordance with the council's development plan, unless other material planning considerations indicate otherwise. And they feel that the case officer's analysis correctly concludes that such development is contrary to policy DM5 and cannot be made acceptable through the use of appropriate planning conditions or mitigation. I've also received correspondence from the applicants. These were sent directly to members and chair, so I don't propose to go through them verbatim, but I do have copies of them if we need to refer to them later. So that's it in terms of updates. So then finally moving back to the summary of the application and the officer consideration. In terms of principal development, This is a major commercial development in an open countryside location, and it results in the permanent loss of 12 hectares of Grade 3A agricultural land. Therefore, the proposal is not in accordance with the requirements of Policy DM5, which is a dominant policy of the development plan as a whole. The landscape impact, the development will create a large and dominant feature in the countryside, and bearing in mind the existing landscape character of the area, officers feel that there will be an adverse landscape impact with or without the proposed mitigation. So as economic development and growth, or the clear benefit of that and the contribution towards the economic growth of the district is acknowledged, and this is in line with the economic element of sustainable development as set out in the NPPF, our own core strategy policy CS9. So here is clear policy support in that regard. In terms of highway impact, the highway and transport impacts of the proposal have been judged to be acceptable. There'll be no, and the conclusion is that there'll be no significant adverse impact on the highway network, and the development will provide for appropriate levels of sustainable transport, subject to those footpath creations and contribution being secured. The additional footpath cycle links would enhance the sustainable transport links for the site, and this will allow pedestrians and cyclists to access the site. In terms of ecology and biodiversity, the development includes a significant increase in biodiversity above the 10%, which is the national target that needs to be achieved now, and subject to provision of mitigation in accordance with the ecological appraisal recommendations and appropriate management conditions. The proposal will cause relevant policies in this regard. In terms of air quality, there'll be no significant impact, and also electric vehicle charging points will be provided in accordance with the required standards and builder regulations, and the application has demonstrated that. In terms of drainage and flood risk, due to lack of information and detailed proposals, the LLFA, that's the local lead flood authority, the Suffolk County Council, is not satisfied that the proposed development could be satisfactorily drained without increasing the risk of flooding elsewhere in accordance with the requirements of policy. As mentioned in the report, details can be provided to address those points, but at this point in time, they've not been provided, so the application is contrary to current policy. A robust noise impact assessment has been produced. Noise, this is in terms of noise, demonstrating that with the incorporation of appropriate mitigation, including acoustic bunding and fencing, the noise impact on residential dwellings in the vicinity of the site would not be adverse. In terms of other matters, we've considered lighting, archaeology, and direct impact on local residents, and we have found that the application is acceptable in that regard. Planning obligations, as mentioned in the report, there's two elements to that. One is the contribution towards the footpath creation, as you can see, of £750,000, and also provision of off-site skylight plots. They have been agreed in principle, but there is no completed legal agreement. So at this present time, because of that, the application remains contrary to policy CS14 of the core strategy. And then finally, moving on to the planning balance. Hopefully it's helpful for you to see that on the screen. Fortunately, I've not been able to fit this onto one image, so it's on two slides. But in terms of the benefits of the application, it's a growth of a significant business and employer in the district, with significant local job creation, likely to be understood to be 70 jobs, contributing to the economy of the district. There would also be job creation and economic benefits during the construction of any buildings, and the improvements to footpath and cycle links through to Wesley Village are noted, as indeed a safer crossing of the A14 for pedestrians. In terms of the disbenefits, it's significant development in the countryside, contrary to policy DM5, and therefore there's a significant in principle policy conflict. has a loss of 12 hectares of best most versatile grade 3 agricultural land, a further clear breach of policy DM5. There would be adverse visual impact on the landscape character and the visual receptors around the site. The local leaf flow authority is not satisfied that proposed development can be satisfactorily drained without increasing the risk of flooding elsewhere at this present time. And I guess I just mentioned, without a completed Section 106 legal agreement, the application to secure the necessary obligations, the application is contrary to policy CS14. So in conclusion, the benefits of this significant commercial development and the opportunity for growth of an established business in the district are acknowledged, and they have been given significant weight as per the requirement in the NPPF. However, on balance, when assessed against the NPPF and the development plan as a whole, it is considered that the identified harm demonstrably outweighs the benefits of the development. It is recommended the application be refused for the reasons set out in the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Gary. So we turn our attention now to the list of registered speakers, and I will name them as follows. We've got 3 objectors. Well, before I say that, just to explain to the committee. Okay, am I back? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I did allow extra time for each one of these sections. So we normally allow 3 minutes, but I actually allowed 6 minutes because there are 2 wards involved and 2 parish councils. So every section has got 6 minutes. So when I explain that the 3 objectors, each of whom have got 2 minutes each, are as follows. David Letley, and you are going to focus your attention on noise. Yes. Thank you. Then we've got Robert Beckett. You've got 2 minutes, and you're going to focus on traffic. And we've got Vivian South, and you've got 2 minutes, and you're going to focus on light pollution. Thank you. Okay. Then we've got Councillor Mike Burt. Thank you. And you are representing, as the chair, the Saxons Parish Council. Then we've got Councillor Ian Turner. Did I understand the message I got was you're not speaking, or are you speaking? You are speaking. Okay. So 6 divided by 2 means you've both got 3 minutes. Then we've got 2 members of the committee. We've got Councillor Ian Holder and Councillor Susan Glossop. Each of you have got 3 minutes. And then we've got Ewan McLeod, who is the applicant, and Clive Bentley, who is Sharps Acoustics. I just understand you're swapping around on my list, so Clive, you will be going first. Okay. Right. We'll start with you then, David. Thank you very much indeed. You've got 2 minutes.
Can you hear me? Thank you, council officers. We in Risby fully support your recommendation. I'm a chartered mechanical engineer with extensive experience of steel production and use in several industries worldwide, and I've also worked on noise attenuation. I'm most emphatically in favour of the steel industry, but not at any cost. The applicant has widely advertised his BREEAM credentials, but very selectively failed to adhere to the BREEAM 2018 Section 4 noise requirement to stay 5 decibels below existing background noise levels. Why? Because they have no chance of adhering to such a standard. Be well aware, the applicant's massive model factory in Somerset that they wish to reproduce in Risby is sensibly located on a remote airfield industrial site 2.6 kilometres from the nearest village, as opposed to 60 metres from the nearest Risby home. Nicola Hope moved to Risby from Kentford, and I quote from her objection. While some people might consider noise from the A14 a disturbance, at least that is a constant background hum. The jarring, clanging and banging from heavy pieces of steel being manoeuvred could be heard inside our house at all times, even with the windows closed. And Nicola is just the tip of the iceberg. I have identified residents of Kentford more than a kilometre from AJN, even one in Herringswell, 2.9 kilometres away, who suffer similarly. So I commissioned our own acoustic consultants, and since you will have read Pace Consult's 2 reviews, I won't need to repeat here all the flaws that were revealed in both of the applicants' noise impact assessments. The applicants are seeking to take advantage of the droning noise from the A14.
David, I'm very sorry, your 2 minutes are up. Can you finish quickly?
By masking the overall noise picture. They've omitted to add noise and uncertainty penalties which reflect tonal, impulsive and intermittent noises which, because of the high levels of low frequency sound, punch easily and noticeably through the drone of traffic.
David, I'm going to have to stop you. If you divided it 3 ways, then you are now well over your 2 minutes. I do apologise, but that's...
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And so we turn to Robert, and similarly, Robert, you've got 2 minutes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I commend the planners for recommending refusal of this application. I wish to address the traffic aspect. The Risby Road system is inadequate for the existing volumes. The proposed potential of 100 plus additional movements would overwhelm us. Rather than theorise, I would again quote from Nicola Hope's actual experience. And I quote, "I'm writing to express my absolute horror and dismay that this application is even being considered. I previously lived close to AGN Steelworks in Kentford, and the impact of this business was horrendous. Certain conditions of the Kentford planning permission were soon flouted, such as AGN lorries were only to access the site from the A14, but were soon thundering up and down the adjacent C Road. The A14 is frequently blocked due to roadworks and accidents. Sat-navs would take potentially hundreds of heavy vehicles through our village, past our school. Our quality of life would suffer, and accidents, including injury and damage, would then be inevitable." Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Robert. And Vivian, you've got 2 minutes. Thank you.
I fully support the planners in refusing the application as an unsuitable site. As a potential close neighbour, I am very disturbed this proposed site is being considered at all. Due to the adverse effect of light pollution, Risby and the surrounding areas will suffer. Currently, there has not been a nighttime assessment carried out in respect to the glare this site would emit. Somerset Council recorded complaints in 2018, 19 and 20 to the EHO about sky glow from AGN site at Henstridge, which was referred to planning enforcement as a potential breach of planning conditions. AGN also failed to apply for permission to erect 15 8-metre high floodlights, and following neighbours' complaints was pressured by Somerset Council in 2018 to apply retrospectively. The case officer's notes recorded AGN's threat to attach additional and brighter outward-facing lighting to the exterior if the retrospective application was refused, so permission was reluctantly granted. In Dorset, Marnell Parish Council received a resident complaint who stated their previously dark night sky had been lit up like a football stadium. The EHO investigated but concluded nothing could be done due to health and safety reasons. At Kentford AGN site, floodlight height was initially restricted, but once in place, the column height was increased, adding to the light pollution. Despite neighbour objections, AGN claimed neighbour consent was not required. This is not being a good neighbour. In conclusion, the proposed AGN site would be totally unsuitable for the rural historic village of Risby. It would have an immense adverse effect on residents' health, well-being and safety, and undoubtedly have a negative effect on the local village wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. And if I didn't make it clear at the beginning, these are residents, 3 neighbouring residents from Risby. So, okay, we turn our attention now to the Saxons Parish Council. Chair Mike, over to you for 3 minutes.
So I'm representing the villages of Little Saxham and Great Saxham. This proposal represents significant development in the countryside, establishing a Class B2 general industrial site on 12 hectares of best, most versatile agricultural land in conflict with West Suffolk Council's policy DM5 development in the countryside. AJN is one of the largest steel stockholding companies in the UK. The daily business cycle demands 300 to 400 tonnes of steel to be processed through its operations every working day. Raw materials arriving each morning, manufacturing through the day, and finished goods dispatched overnight. The enormous scale of the development and its proximity to the settlements of Risby and Little Saxham and Great Saxham are clearly illustrated in the visualisation we've seen today, provided in the applicant's design and access statement. This adds further adverse visual impact on the landscape, which cannot be fully mitigated, while the 24-hour operation of the site will affect the settlements with substantially increased noise, extra heavy traffic and light pollution. It's therefore a matter of fact, accepted I believe by both supporters and objectors alike, that this proposal represents a clear breach of the local development plan. In this case, national planning guidance dictates that permission should not be granted unless material planning considerations indicate otherwise. The robust planning balance analysis undertaken by the case officer examines these material planning considerations, most notably the economic benefits that will accrue from supporting the growth of a significant local business, but also the consequential improvement in sustainable transport links. The reasoned conclusion in this specific situation is that the identified harm to the landscape demonstrably outweighs the benefits of development, and therefore planning permission should be refused. It's for this very reason that West Suffolk Council has set aside appropriate zones elsewhere for general industrial use, so that businesses such as AJN can thrive without harming the peace and tranquility of settlements in the countryside. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mike. And Ian, it's your opportunity as the Vice Chair of Risby Parish Council.
Thank you for allowing us time to present our case on behalf of Risby Parish Council and the residents of Risby. This application has caused worry, anxiety and concern across the village, as demonstrated by the significant levels of objection from residents. We welcome the case officer's recommendation that this application should be refused. This rural site is not allocated for this purpose in the local plan and has not been accepted by the council for allocation in the emerging local plan. As development in the countryside, it is contrary to policy DM5 of the local plan. That policy provides clear tests for the assessment of commercial development in the countryside. As supported by your officer's report, the proposals fail to satisfy these tests through, firstly, the irreversible loss of best and most versatile agricultural land, and secondly, adverse impacts on the character and visual amenity of the landscape, which will take 15 years to mitigate. The acoustic fence, building roof line and bund will be highly visible, more than doubling the existing footprint of Claas and Calla within the horizontal field of view. Indeed, paragraphs 213 and 214 of your officer's report highlight the council's landscape consultant finds the 5-metre acoustic bund to be inappropriate for the setting regardless of planting. The council's landscape consultant also found the applicant's landscape conclusion to be a vast leap of judgment without significant justification. Even after mitigation planting, paragraph 213 states that there will still be a moderate adverse visual impact on landscape character and visual receptors around the site. As determined by your officers, the proposals fail on these grounds alone. However, in addition to this, you heard today from residents who have continued concerns about noise, highways and visual effects. It has taken the applicant three iterations of their noise study to submit sufficient evidence to allow the EHO to devise a planning condition. We continue to be extremely concerned regarding the effectiveness and enforceability of the latest condition, and therefore the impact of noise on the scheme and on the rural tranquility of the village. With respect to highways, you no doubt have noted on your site visit that the A14 junction at South Street is not a normal junction in the context of a major trunk road. The agreed traffic mitigation condition may work initially, but we're still concerned over the enforceability of this condition, particularly as time goes by, such that it would fail the legal tests of a planning condition. The number of responses from our residents show the level of concern in Risby. If this application were to be improved, it will blight Risby forever, be a poor neighbour.
Ian, can I interrupt you, please, and just say your 3 minutes is up. Can you finish in one sentence?
Yep. And spoil what is currently a beautiful Suffolk village. We therefore ask the committee to accept the proposal of the case officer.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Right, we turn now to our ward members who are both members of the committee, and you can address the committee from where you're sat. And first I've got Councillor Ian Holder, who is a ward member for Barrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Now, the Saxons, for those who don't know, fall into Barrow Ward, and they're two distinct hamlets within the same parish. The committee have heard from the residents and the objectors, and the objections are clearly laid out in the papers. I was invited to Risby to attend a public meeting where the applicant was in attendance. I did attend Parish Council Saxon's meeting where the applicant was in attendance. So I'll just say that again for clarity. We've heard a very good report from our officer who's tried to balance up the whole application. Obviously, the applicants have put in a great deal of effort and time and expense into their application, but it doesn't get away from the very fact, the headline fact, that this application is against our policy. The landowner never put this land into the last local plan 2031 to be considered for anything, nor has he done so for the emerging local plan, which is a bit strange. Usually these things are well thought through in advance. We heard from the Saxon Parish Council that West Suffolk District Council have allocated land for industrial use throughout West Suffolk in their current local plan and indeed in the emerging plan. However, the applicant has found it problematic from the papers to select any of these. Like when the debate starts, if the officers can actually explain to us what problematic means. Anyway, I won't go on any longer and I'll leave it to Susan Glossop to speak on behalf of Risby. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holder. Councillor Glossop, please.
Right. Thank you, Chairman. I would first of all like to thank Gary Hancock for the detailed report and presentation and all the work he has done on this application, which has been phenomenal. The committee have heard from the Risby Parish Council and Saxon and the residents who are pleased with the proposed recommendation to refuse the application. The committee have heard all the reasons and concerns and as to why they think this is the right decision. I would like to expand on the issues that don't accord with our local plans and our policies. Development in the designated countryside, building on agricultural land. On the site visit, the members saw that Risby is surrounded by agricultural land. The site is not included in the current local plan. It is not included in the proposed next local plan, which is with the inspector at the moment and should be adopted in 2025. Risby Village has been downgraded in the emerging local plan from a local service centre to a grade age village, which means it will not see any large-scale housing developments. Risby is a medium-sized village with just under 900 residents. There's no shop, no pub, limited transport, and it has a very active parish council, community centre, good community spirit and very good volunteers. It has a school, it has Brooks Private School on Flempton Road, and it actually has the crematorium, although a little out of the Risby Centre, and it has a care home, and it has a Risby Business Park. Why do district councils have local plans and policies? It is to ensure that they have designated sites for houses and employment. Otherwise, there would be ad hoc development, which could not be controlled like this speculative application. One of the major concerns of this application is the road layout and the A14 junction at South Street. But I might add, I have been discussing with Rebecca Hoffensberger, the Suffolk County Council councillor. We need that whole road layout redone, redesigning. So we're trying to deal with something which is old hat and isn't there fit for purpose. This application is contrary to many of our policies: local plan, LP8, LP6, LP18, core strategy, CS1, CS2, CS3, CS14, joint development management, DM2, DM5, DM6, DM7, DM12, DM13 and DM14. So why do we have policies if we don't stick to them? The economy, growth and jobs are important to West Suffolk, of course. However, this application is a push too far for industrialisation creep along the A14 into the countryside. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glossop. Well timed, just inside your 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, now I think 2 or 3 are going to move back to allow the applicants to come forward. Thank you, David and Robert. And okay, so Clive, you're speaking first, and you're limited to your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Clive Bentley. I'm an acoustic consultant and a partner at Sharps Acoustics. I'm here to provide an overview of the noise assessment that me and my team have carried out to determine the potential effects of noise from this development. As you'll be aware, national noise and policy and guidance requires that noise from this type of development has no significant adverse effects. If significant adverse effects were predicted, planning permission would normally be refused. If there were adverse effects which were less than significant, these must be mitigated and minimised so far as possible, and planning conditions can be used to ensure that noise is adequately controlled. When there are no adverse effects, no further action is required to control noise. Again, planning conditions can be used to ensure this state of affairs will continue during the operation of the site. Our assessment work began by carrying out a detailed survey of baseline and source noise levels at the proposed development site and at the nearby existing operational site in Kentford. These levels, which were set out in the noise report which was submitted to the Council, have been used to predict noise levels from the site as it is proposed to be operated, considering the different patterns of use over day and night. Noise mitigation has been proposed both in the form of management controls and in the form of screening, which is described in detail in our report. The mitigation can be secured by conditions. With the proposed mitigation in place, the predicted noise levels have been considered using the methodology using British Standard BS 4142, which is the industry standard approach for this kind of noise. The outcome was that no noise levels would result in an adverse impact, and of course, obviously there would be no significant adverse effect. Again, this is all described in detail in my report. So comparing the outcome the outcome that we found to the requirements of the relevant planning policy, no further action is required to control noise, and our recommended mitigation can be secured by conditions. So there is no reason to refuse planning permission to avoid significant adverse effects due to noise.
Thank you very much indeed, Clive. And Ewan, I beg your pardon. There was 2 Ians and now there's a Ewan. And you've got 3 minutes, Ewan, and you are the applicant.
Is that on? No, it's not. Sorry. AJN Steelstock is a Suffolk success story that was founded in Bury St Edmunds 70 years ago. It's grown to become one of the largest steel stock holding companies in the UK, playing a national role in the construction industry. The business is firmly rooted in West Suffolk, with its headquarters at Kentford, employing around 200 of its highly skilled local workforce. The proposal will safeguard these jobs and over time create a further 70 jobs representing significant economic benefit. The business has been working at overcapacity at its Kentford site for many years, which is constraining growth and harming the business. As a direct result, AJN recently had to relocate their office function, which is about 40 people, from Kentford to Saxon Business Park, a few hundred metres from the subject site. Being split across two sites is far from ideal and certainly not sustainable. AJN's desire to relocate is well known within West Suffolk Council. They originally asked if they could form part of Suffolk Park, and the council said they didn't want them there because they're a B2 use. This is a continued theme AJN have faced, and because most allocated sites are typically within built-up areas, don't cater for B2 use and require the routing of HEVs through the middle of a series of rural villages to get to the A14. Despite support from the economic development team and numerous attempts, the honest position is that West Suffolk has not been able to help us identify a more suitable alternative, with the subject site being the only available and deliverable option that meets all of AJN's operational requirements. Access to the A14 and renewable energy being two key ones. I've been working on this project for 4 years, and the application itself has been in for 18 months. During this time, we have demonstrated that all development management issues have been satisfied, including noise, highways and ecology. This is a high quality and highly sustainable scheme, with renewable energy coming from the AD plant, surface water being collected and used to irrigate and improve crop yields on the surrounding fields, 16.7% biodiversity net gain, well above the 10% target, and BREEAM Excellence accreditation. In addition, the scheme will deliver over 3 kilometres of footpaths. We are fully aware of the concerns a proposal like this raises with local residents. It should be noted that AJN lorries already use Junction 41 and therefore South Street because they use the refuelling facility on Newmarket Road. And their office staff already at Saxon Business Park also access from Junction 41. We listened to residents' concerns and have agreed to route all AJN lorries so they don't use South Street. This wasn't a highway requirement, but a concession AJN was prepared to make to alleviate local concerns. And this will be enforced if the application is approved. Likewise, on the noise, we'd already satisfied the Environmental Health Officer, but we got Clive involved to get a second opinion because we didn't want to be bad neighbours. The application was always going to come down to planning balance, and we're disappointed that 3 weeks before this committee we discovered that the scheme was no longer going to be supported.
Ewan, you have got to your 3 minutes. Can you finish in one sentence, please?
Yeah, the application supported from visual impact perspective, so we don't believe the office's conclusion on that is a fair balance. And we feel that AJN's economic benefits greatly outweigh the objections.
Thank you very much indeed, Ewan. Thank you. Right, at this point, I think, Councillor Gloppus, you're going to recuse yourself from, well... And as Councillor Glossop leaves the meeting, I'd like to, a familiar face, we nodded earlier, that's Peter Bradfield from Suffolk County Council Highways, has arrived to help us with any highway-related issues. So thank you very much, Peter. The usual way is not to address questions directly to Peter, but through our officers here, and in turn, they will refer the question. No. No, okay. Right. So on that basis, we are now ready to discuss this matter in committee. So could I see on my screen a queue of people that want to speak? Councillor Armitage, please.
Thank you, Chair. We seem to be faced with what looks like a wonderful opportunity for employment in the area. And the things against it, to me, are farmland in particular. And I'm not sure quite what value farmland has these days, apart from producing food. But in terms of biodiversity, as far as I can see, Suffolk farmland is a waste. We have a Section 106 doubt in the officer's report. It's a question, really. Is it possible to enforce a Section 106 agreement to ensure the money is paid. And we have a serious condition on drainage. Another question, I presume we could attach a condition that that must be solved before any approval went forward. And the third question is, how significant is the, I think it's the DM5, where it isn't in the local plan, how significant a factor is that? Can we be flexible and given what the applicant has said, allow this sort of development there? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armitage. Councillor Waldron, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? I don't read that.
You can, we can now, Councillor Waldron.
I was on the site visit. Yes, it's agricultural land, but I believe it's just growing maize to put in the digester to make electricity. So that sort of negates the claim that it's agricultural land. But I have got a problem with the developer not putting it in the past plan, putting it in the developing plan, or even thinking further ahead and putting it in the next plan. And be that as it may, if you allow one developer to bulldoze their way through and ignore things like DM5 and so forth, you've got to do it to all of them. And I'm sorry, on that basis, it can't be allowed. All the pros in the world. Our policies are our policies. We have to stick to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waldron. Councillor Mildmay-White, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I too find it curious that this land hasn't been put in the local plan, because if these discussions have been going on for 4 years, the applicant had every opportunity to bring this land forward for our new emerging plan. But be that as it may, I too went on the site visit. I know this entrance and exit off the A14 extremely well. I use it quite frequently. It's a very tight turn going up to the top where the new entrance would be, and then continuing on round down to South Street. Has there been any indication of cumulative impact if the lorry park was to go ahead? Because that would have a significant impact too on this actual entrance and the new proposed entrance, and also the exit and entrance on and off the A14. So to me, I'm supporting the officers. I think this is highly productive agricultural land. This land it's a speculative development coming forward outside our local plan, and it's development in the countryside, which all our policies are against. So from that point of view, I will be supporting the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mildmay-White. Councillor London, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Page 57229, we are talking here about HGVs using junctions 40 and 42 instead of 41. Obviously, we've spoken about that. However, sort of using Google Maps to try to figure out exactly which way lorries would go, I've been unsuccessful, especially with junction 40. I was wondering if officers would be able to pull up Google Maps or something similar and actually specifically outline the exact routes that are proposed for lorries. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor London. Councillor Thorndyke, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry if I flit around a bit, but I think that's the way the application goes. I thank Gary for giving us a clear set of figures today for the size of the main building, 300 metres by 130 by 16 metres tall. I think that translates to 50 feet, but I'm not sure. Got to work maths out, you know. The noise from the A14 and such like, it seems to be highlighted a bit, but surely this site is above the height of the 14, so the noise is going to come straight past the 14 without touching it. So I'm not sure whether that is actually taken into account with the figures. I'm getting a nod, but I don't know. I haven't heard much of a mention of solar for this vast area of rooftop, other than in a letter I got from Mr. Gittis, I think it was, yesterday, which are telling me all about the solar. Now, I'm not sure how much regard I can give to that, because it's not in the application at all. and it suddenly went through yesterday. So as far as I'm concerned, there is no solar. Tell me if I'm wrong. I thank the applicant actually for somewhere in the paperwork mentioning Shepherd's Grove and saying it's not suitable. Thank you very much. We know the antiquated road system's not suitable. I'm glad to see somebody flagging it up. Hope somebody takes some notice. The other thing is looking at policy. Gary mentioned the bit from the West Suffolk MP who talks about LP18 and LP8. I'm not sure he can talk about them. Susan mentioned them as well. They are part of the emerging local plan, which is out for consultation, which has had questions come back from the inspector, which have been answered. And in particular, one question is about LP18. Pardon me for a moment. The inspector says, is LP18 clear and unambiguous? And as a result of his comments, LP18 is being redrafted, rewritten or whatever, and will change considerably before it gets in the plan. So I think it is dangerous that we are referring to anything in the emergent and local plan at this time. All of that, what I've just said, is on the website, so it's not a problem. But I think it's a problem that we are referring to the local plan, the emerging local plan, when that is in fact changing in some places quite dramatically, although the overall content isn't, but the plan itself is. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Thorndyke. Councillor Neal, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to thank the officer for his presentation. It's very comprehensive, but it hasn't made it very clear for me. I'm torn between, it must have been difficult for him to come to a conclusion of refusal, because I'm torn between refusal and accepting the application. So there's quite a few grey areas. The visual impact, that's debatable. I understand the residents' concerns regarding traffic, but again, I think with the right signage and the support of highways and signage, I think that's surmountable. The farmland, you mentioned the use of quality farmland, and we've just had Sonica taken an awful lot of farmland. I know Sonica's nothing to do with this, but where did our policy stand when that was presented to us? The noise. Now, if there had been room at Risby Industrial Park, would this application have been acceptable to go there? I just wonder about that. Obviously, we've got the noise that's created on the A14 and the railway as well. I appreciate that's been described as a constant noise, whereas this sits above it. But then we've had the report from the noise people. So I don't know where we sit on that, to be honest. One thing that does concern me is there was an opportunity, we've mentioned local plan, there was an opportunity for an industrial park off of the A11, which wasn't put into our local plan. And this is the second application that has come before us since the local plan was submitted that would have been most suitable for that location. So I think West Suffolk's let itself down there by not incorporating on the A11 a situation that would have been ideal for this applicant. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Councillor Neal. Councillor Chester, please.
Thank you, Chair. Question for the case officer. I believe it's in the report, it was definitely mentioned in the case officer's report about proposed production values of the new site. I believe it's 400 tonnes per day, 24/7, correct me if I'm wrong. That's one question. The other question is, based on that figure, what is the current production value of AGN steel stock in Suffolk? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chester. Councillor Sayer, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would very much like to support this application for all the reasons that it is a local business, and we would like to keep businesses like this local. Unfortunately, looking at the plan, the size of this complex is completely inappropriate for this area. It's heavy industrial use, and I think in this rural location is totally inappropriate in this area. What I am concerned about is that their conversations with West Suffolk Council seem not to have been able to find anywhere that is appropriate for this business. And I would very much not like to lose this industrial business in our area, but would hope that another site could be found that is much, much more appropriate. The size of this building is quite unacceptable. It would take Usain Bolt over half a minute to run from one end to the other. It's a massive, massive building that would be highly visible, and I would like this business to remain in Suffolk, but in a different location.
Thank you, Councillor. It would take me a lot longer than that. Councillor Andrew Speed, please.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't expect to hear Usain Bolt come up this morning. I share the comments really of some of the other councillors. I find it disappointing that we have a local plan and a business park that doesn't seem to be able to support this business. I think that shows a weakness in the strategy. You have an economic team that supports it, but then seemingly we don't have an economic plan that allows it to be placed in an area which everybody would be comfortable with. I think it's very difficult for councillors this morning because a lot of the areas which I fully understand would be of concern around noise and light and traffic have been mitigated by the departments concerned. There's no objections from Environment Agency, Highways or any of the other bodies that have carried out studies and surveys. The noise certainly seems to be satisfactorily mitigated. So I think it's very hard for all of us. We all want to see the business stay local. We want to support growth because without growth there's no tax for services. And I suppose I have two quick questions which I think are very pertinent, particularly with the Seneca issue in mind. I have taken it as read that there would be considerable solar on the roof, which is clearly a very good place for solar rather than farmland. Can we just confirm, subject to further is there's a highways officer here, are we happy that we can enforce that traffic will not go to the South Street, which is an understandable objection for all local residents? So those are two questions. And then I think a bigger comment about the fact that I don't think this is the first time that DM5 actually isn't fit for purpose. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Speed. I've got nobody else in the queue, so I'm going to take the opportunity to invite officers to come back on several of those issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Hopefully I've made correct notes of all this. Forgive me if I miss anyone out, but I'll go through what I've got. Starting with, I believe, in terms of questions, Councillor Armitage mentioned a question about the enforceability of the Section 106. Well, yes, once it was completed, it would be enforceable. It's not complete, obviously, at the moment, but should there be an approval, it would be a legal document. So it's one of the most enforceable, if you like, because it has more of a standing than conditions in terms of its enforceability would be through the courts. So certainly, I would say yes, they're very enforceable. Anything within a Section 106. Drainage, that should we get to a point where local flood authority are happy, are accepting the details that have been submitted, then yes, those elements connected to that would be conditioned or conditionable. And then there was a question about flexibility of DM5. It's not really my view. It's not really about flexibility. It's about consideration of material considerations, basically. So yes, starting position is an application could be contrary to DM5, but then you look at material considerations that may or may not outweigh that in principle policy objection, if you like, and that's where the planning balancing exercise comes into play. So in essence, you can go contrary to policy. You don't always have to go, depending on whether there are other material considerations which indicate that you should go contrary to a particular policy. terms of, I think Councillor Mildmay White mentioning cumulative impact in respect to the Lorry Park application. I would like to defer that question to Peter from Highways, who obviously looked at the highway impact of that. So I wouldn't want to say anything that was wrong in that respect right now. So I'll defer that one to Peter, if I may. Councillor London mentioned HGV routes and junctions 40 and 42, I believe. If the presentation could be shown on the screen. Yeah, thank you. So where are we? Right. So this is junction 41. Junction. I'm going to try and get these numbers right now. I think this is junction 42, and this is junction 40. So essentially, the way it currently works at the moment, there is existing signage on the A14, which does actually direct HGV traffic to not use this junction arrangement and actually to go down to the Wesley roundabout, go round and come back on themselves to enter the Saxon Business Park over here. But clearly that's not always happening because lorries do use this junction to cross over onto this side. So the proposal is for the all basically for traffic using to access this site. They would not come off at this junction. They would again, when they're travelling in an eastwards direction, they would go around the roundabout and come back, and then and also leaving the site, they would not go in a westward bound route. An eastbound route. They'd go in a westbound route. So they would leave the site, and if necessary, turn around at another junction, such as this one here, to then carry on their journey in an eastbound direction. Hopefully that makes sense. And then that arrangement would be required by condition. And clearly, there's no guarantees with that, but it's in the applicant's own interest to ensure that they comply with that, because there'd obviously be complaints if not. So yeah, that's all I can say on that point. Then moving on to Councillor Thorndike raised about question about the A14 noise. I think that was in relation to the level of the site being higher than the road level, which I did point out in my presentation. Yes, that's correct. But obviously the acoustic mitigation proposed is a 5-metre acoustic fence, and that mitigates for that impact, having regard to obviously the levels of the site. Obviously, without that, then yes, it would be an issue. Solar PVs on the building. Yes, I can confirm that the application does indicate that that is the case, that the intention is to provide PVs on the building, and that was all part of the BREEAM Excellent standard which they're going for in terms of design and construction. So apologies, that may have not been specifically mentioned in my presentation, but it is something the applicants are proposing. Emerging local plan policies, as you pointed out, LP18 being one of them, they are emerging and they have a minimal weight. That is all set out in my report. I wasn't referring to them, and I haven't referred to them. I believe the local MP did. But as I explained, hopefully that it's DM5, which is the current policy that we're referring to, not LP18. Councillor Neil mentioned about Risby Industrial Park. Well, in essence, I don't think it's big enough for a scheme of this scale to go there anyway. But of course, should it have been, similar considerations would have had to be taken into account as we've gone through in this application, such as noise, traffic, etc., etc. And of course, the outcome could have been very different. Councillor Chester asked about the production value of AGN generally and in Suffolk. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that. It's simple as that. I don't know. Councillor Speed, well, hopefully the PV on the roof I've just clarified. And the enforcement of traffic on South Street, yes, I can obviously refer to Peter for a response on that one, Chairman.
Thank you, Gary. Anything to add, Rachel? Yes, Peter, I saw you busily making notes. Could you address? Thank you.
Hear me okay? Councillor London talked about HGVs and the use of the junctions to the A14 and to what extent we can enforce on the movements that the applicant has brought forward for where their vehicles will leave and join the A14 at the junctions that Gary identified. We don't have any specific powers to enforce that. The enforcement of those measures would be a police matter, but the condition that the applicant would agree to in respect of managing those HGV movements, I think, or the Highway Authority think, is an acceptable measure to mitigate the impact on South Street and that junction. Councillor Speed asked a similar question, and I think it was Councillor Speed that asked about the cumulative impact of the right, sorry, maybe I've made it. Yes, sorry, Councillor Mildmay-White. My understanding, Councillor, is that the assessment that was submitted for this application did not consider the cumulative impact of the lorry park and its site, but addressed its site only. I think, Chair, that's covered the main issues that were raised in respect of highways, but if there are further, please come to me.
Thanks, Peter. Before I move on again, those members that contributed to the debate and had questions, have you got the answers? And are you satisfied at this point? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, in that case then, Councillor Neil, please.
Thank you, Chair. The two main issues that seems to have been presented is noise, which I think has been addressed, and traffic, which has just been addressed. But I understand that the policies that we've got are creating a big restriction. Just a little minor thing. There was a footpath on one of your slides, Gary, and that was for Suffolk County Council. We're going to put in this. Was it a cycleway or a pathway? Whichever it was, it's quite a length, and obviously along that way would need to be installed waste collection bins and such like. And who would then be managing those? Would that be West Suffolk, or would that be the County Council?
We'll just note that as a question, Councillor Neil, because there are other members wishing to speak and there may be other questions, but it's a good point to raise. Councillor London, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just as while we're talking about transport, I do find it interesting that, here we are in 2024, and the fact that this site is bounded by a railway line is entirely immaterial, and that we are assuming that absolutely all transport will be happening via the road network. I think it's a very great shame that we've ended up in sort of a situation where even the possibility of using the rail network is not something that's really brought up at all, and that's not really a very sustainable way of dealing with transport in the future. I hear what has been said with regards to directing traffic rather to the other junctions, and I know that you're not national highways. But at the same point, I'm really surprised that, given the significant impact on the A14, a road which Literally a few miles down the way in Newmarket, we have a bridge of a similar age to this that has concrete cancer, that has been undergoing massive renovation works, that we have had major flooding, and is an arterial road to the port of Felixstowe, where a significant amount of our goods come into the country. That we are adding to the load on the A14, and that there's been no representation from National Highways saying that they would like a contribution, and that they would like something to try to ameliorate some of these issues. I would not expect a development such as this in any way, shape or form to be entirely responsible for the upgrading of Junction 41. That would be absurd. However, I express my surprise that there has been no request for some funds towards the improvement of Junction 41, and in that way helping the local community. In the same way, I'm surprised that when we have our acoustic boundary to the north of the site, again, it's not this site's it's not the applicant's responsibility to deal with issues of noise from the A41, but if the acoustic wall was moved from one side of the A14 to the other side of the A14, then that would help ameliorate some of the noise complaints that already exist, that would hopefully make things slightly better in the area rather than slightly worse. And I think that's where I'm coming from with this, which is that it is one of these applications which in the balance will make the lives of everyone in the area slightly worse rather than slightly better. And my final point on this is that I do think that West Suffolk Council does bear a small amount of responsibility that we can't find a better and more suitable site for a needed business such as this, and it really is up to us to be able to have sites allocated in our plan for businesses such as this to be able to slot into our local plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor London. Councillor Whittam, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the use, I take it 41 is the junction right by the. In my experience, and I know the area very well, the vast amount of heavy goods vehicles using that junction to access South Street and then onto the old Newmarket Road do so to go to the two cafes and lorry parks that are along there and have overnight stops. The only other vehicles using that route tend to be the agricultural people carrying sugar beet or other stuff. Generally, there would be no other reason for anybody in a heavy goods to use that junction at all. So I have no problems over the highways issues for this development. I'd like to say that in the current local plan, we are building lots and lots of houses with lots and lots of people moving into, certainly around the Bury St Edmunds area. It would be such a shame to lose this opportunity for employment and increase employment and economic benefit to our town. So I'm minded to vote against refusal and in favour of.
So are you making a proposal now that you want to approve the application contrary to the officer's recommendation?
I can do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could I see if that is seconded, please? I'm going to go to Councillor Armitage. He just beat you by a fingertip, I think, Councillor Neil. And we're going to need, officers are going to need reasons. So can you, between you, try and articulate some of the key reasons for wanting to approve this rather than refuse it?
It was said in the very good report by our officers that the economic benefits of this were considered, but given weight. In my opinion, they certainly outweigh any other consideration, given that highways have got no problems, the acoustics have been matched. To me, that is the main thing. what would be the effect that if Huntingdonshire or Lincolnshire gave these people the site? We would lose them completely, and instead of gaining 70 jobs, we'd lose 200.
Thank you. Councillor Armitage, you wish to add to?
Thank you, Chair. Only to repeat really my initial comments. I didn't mean to say farmland was just worthless. What I mean is it's worthless in terms of biodiversity in Suffolk as far as I can see. We're only losing 12 hectares. It's bounded on one side by the road, one side by railway, and is almost surrounded by commercial and industrial areas. That seemed to be one of the major reasons. Sorry.
Bear with me one moment. At this point, you can't contribute to the debate.
I have a point, but it's very important to make.
Well, I'm very sorry, but no, you can't at this point. A proposal has been made. The public speaking session is over. So you might feel that way, but as chair, I can't allow it.
Thank you.
Peter, carry on, please.
And thank you for the answers, both from the officers and the ones I've listened to from Suffolk County Council. The drainage condition can be covered. The Section 106 condition can be covered. And also, I mean, I hope I'm interpreting this correctly. We can be flexible on the DM5 planning guidance. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Now, I have to ask officers at this point, would this be covered by the decision-making protocol?
Chairman, yes. So we, obviously at the front of the agenda, as you know, we do have a decision-making protocol in instances where we may have members being minded to overturn the recommendation of officers. In this case, I would say that I'm minded to approve on the basis of what members have just proposed, which is that the economic benefits outweigh the harm explained in the report, and also Councillor Armitage's point about the importance of the best and most versatile land and perhaps the biodiversity value of it. I would be invoking the decision-making protocol so that officers in our risk assessment report can set out clearly to members the weight to be attached to those material considerations. But also in this case, as you can imagine, it's a very large major application, and we would really need to go through a large piece of work to ensure that we're including all the conditions that we would need to recommend if members then ultimately decide to approve the application. So on that basis, Chair, it would be a minded to vote that you're looking to move towards. Minded to approve, sorry.
Minded to approve. Thank you, Rachel. Councillor Holder.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was interesting to me to delay speaking to hear the views of various other people. I think there's certain red herrings within this paper anyway, because initially when the officers were preparing papers for, even before we got to this presentation, they were sort of minded to approve it because they could mitigate all the things likely to come up, and we've heard about the mitigations. I think practicalities of junctions and transport and HGV actually doesn't always bear the reality of the situation. The A14 is, we all know, which again isn't the highways problem, is getting busier and busier. It's a bit of a bottleneck between Newmarket and Stowmarket, really, when it's two-lane. More and more lorries are coming onto it. The slightest accident can cause diversions through the villages, not just Saxham or Wesley or whatever. The fact is that lorry drivers are a rule unto themselves, particularly if they're not directly employed by the operator. And time and time again, I know from personal experience that HGVs trying to go through Wesley Village have to stop suddenly because they haven't got their sat-nav telling me there's a weight restriction on that bridge. Similarly, going through the Saxon Business Park, so I can turn left here and get up through the country. No, you can't. There's a low railway bridge, etc. And underneath, funny enough, that railway bridge, it floods regularly. I heard the officer trying to not dismiss DM 25, I think it was. Yeah, sorry? Yeah.
DM5.
5, yeah. But this is a senior policy of non-development in the countryside, and building, which without being rude, is a completely alien construction in the countryside, which has got nothing to do with agriculture. If it had had something to do with agriculture, like that green mill, which the officers objected to a bit further down the A14 past the Sugar Beet, because it was a bit big, but the members here said, well, actually, it's a strategic grain mill in an agricultural area, serving that huge industry in East Anglia. So the members actually approved that, which has been recommended today to approve this. But this is not an agricultural thing. It's a steel factory of huge proportions. And it was great to see the schematics put up there of how actually big it was and how long it was. It isn't suitable site. And again, I reiterate what's been said. Why has actually I asked right early on, why has not the applicant chosen any of the sites he may have been offered? You know, have we offered him sites which could facilitate such a big construction? I hadn't heard an answer to that from our officers, so it'd be handy. I think we heard it very well from Councillor Sayer about that she was minded to because of the economic things and the employment things, but actually it's so big, it's so against our policies that we really shouldn't be doing it. Our senior officer said it could be a minded to decision, but it has to go to the protocol. I'm almost surprised, actually, when I was earlier involved with this, that the officers hadn't actually told the applicant that you really shouldn't be pursuing this. But there we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holder. I've got Councillor Dicker, and then I'm going to go back to officers. Okay, Councillor Dicker, please.
Thank you. I think it's been an excellent debate, though quite lengthy, this morning, and I've waited to hear as much as possible from members and officers on this. I am the member for Kentford, which obviously has the current AGN Steelworks plant in the village, although it is slightly outside. And when they moved in many years ago, they actually took over a previous company that had a lot of lorries there as well. Now, we do have a few issues. I don't really get any complaints at all, although their lorries also are in Kennet and do go through the heart of the village. But Kentford itself suffers greatly from all the lorries going through it, various places anyway. I'm pleased actually in this instance that a member has proposed approval, minded to approve, because I think this economic side of it is massive. As the member said, the whole area is taking hundreds and hundreds of houses, thousands of houses, and this is a sizable amount of jobs. I know people who work at the AGN in Kentford, and the loss of this company would be huge. I myself, running the local business and everything, it would be negligible to me if AGN did move out. However, I think for the amount of jobs, is in one way, if it comes to the area, is very necessary and important. So, is that telling me to stop? So, regarding the issue that it's going out on open farmland, well, I think the present government has decided that actually isn't important, that anything goes on farmland now anyway. So we've got to steer from the government that do whatever you like. It doesn't matter. Food is not important in this country anymore. The reason why I am going to vote with approval is because I want to see the risk assessment from our officers of what it would mean regarding our policies, that obviously it is against. And I want to understand furthermore the issues if we were to vote for this, because I want to support AGN very much. They are very important to the area. Jobs is incredibly important. However, I want to see our officers come back as to what it really means if we went against our policies on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dicker. Okay, officers again. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. There's just a couple of points I wanted to come back on. Councillor Holder asked about why the applicants haven't pursued this through the local plan. I don't know, one, if they did pursue it through the local plan, or if they didn't, why they didn't. But we're here now with this application that we need to determine in accordance with the policies in our adopted local plan. Which brings me on to the second point that was made about, I would probably use the word veracity, the veracity of DM5 in our adopted plan. So I would disagree that officer's recommendation does anything other than explain the very important place that DM5 sits within the local plan. And I think you only have to look at the recommendation on page 75 of the report, so paragraph 317, which puts DM5 front and centre of the recommendation in relation to the loss of best and most versatile land, which is still enshrined in the National Planning Policy Framework, and also the landscape impact, as well as the two slightly more technical reasons for refusal that relate to both an unresolved technical issue to do with drainage and the fact that we don't have a signed and secured Section 106 for the contributions required there. So very definitely, I don't think there's been any attempt through the report or the recommendation to water down the importance of what's actually called in the report a dominant policy of the development plan that is there to deal with developments in the countryside. So yeah, just really that point that I wanted to emphasise. Thank you.
Anything to add from you, Gary? Anything at all? Okay. Right. Let's test out where the committee sits on this proposal. So it's proposed by Councillor Whittam to approve it. That will be a minded to decision, which means the application will return with an officer's risk assessment and assessment. And that was seconded by Councillor Armitage. So that's now, can I see a show of hands in favour of approval, which is contrary to the officer's recommendation of refusal? And those against the proposal? Quiet, please.
Thank you, Chair. So that's 5 votes in favour, 9 against, so the motion is lost.
Thank you, Christine. So the debate continues, or some member can put forward an alternative proposal. Councillor Waldron.
I propose that we reject this as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Is that seconded? Councillor Mildmay-White, would you like to add anything, Councillor Mildmay-White?
But, DM5 is our policy, and we reject our policies. It's a very dangerous route we go down when we reject our policies. They are there for a reason, and I wouldn't be wanting to set a precedent for any other speculative development like this. And when it came to the Sunaker application, which Councillor Neil mentioned, that actually was a national decision by the Secretary of State. And as Councillor Neil well knows, West Suffolk took a very strong stance against it. And we value the importance of agricultural land. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mildmay-White. Right, I'm going to go straight into... Can you still hear me? Yeah. I'm going to go straight into this. There's no members indicating they wish to speak. So it's now been proposed by Councillor Waldron to refuse the application, and that's been seconded by Councillor Mildmay-White. and that's in line with the officer's recommendation. Can I see a show of hands in favour of refusal, please? Yeah, keep your hands up, members. And those against the recommendation or the proposal for refusal, please. Any abstentions? Over to you, Christine.
Thank you, Chair. So that's 10 votes for, 4 against and 1 abstention. So the application is refused.
Thank you very much indeed, members. Now, members, I'm going to suggest that we have a 5-minute comfort break. Is that okay? And we can pick up Councillor Glossop as well on the return. And I know, Councillor Armitage, I think you might have... Yeah, so... Expecting those to return. At which point, I think we're all back now. So could I turn your attention to the agenda item 6, which is the All Saints Hotel in Fornham St Genevieve. And Tamara is the presenting case officer. Yes. Oh. And unfortunately, Councillor Sayer, there are no windows to throw it out of in this conference facility. Okay, are you settled, Councillor Sayer? Well, not until all the public speaking is finished. Yeah. Okay, are we settled? Tamara, over to you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. This is a full planning application at All Saints Hotel in Fornham St Genevieve. The application proposes the retention of an outdoor gym, which includes an exercise shelter, equipment and storage container. The application is retrospective and therefore the gym is in situ already and is currently managed by the Health Hub, which is All Saints' own workout group. The officer recommendation for this application is approval subject to conditions, and I will provide a bit of background on the next slide. So, as some background and history, because some members on committee will Sorry.
Yes.
Hello? Yeah. Oh, we're back. So apologies. So some members may remember this application from April last year, where we brought it to Development Control previously on a previous application reference. At this committee, members refused the application on the grounds of adverse impact to amenity and impact on surrounding trees, which was contrary to the officer recommendation of approval. Following this previous decision, the applicants appealed this decision to the Planning Inspectorate, which was later dismissed in December 2023. The appealed decision has been included at the back of the report and is in Appendix A, in case you want to read that in full. As you will note in this decision, the inspector highlighted that the two main issues with the development related to the impact to neighbours by way of noise disturbance and the impact to the surrounding protected woodland, which I'll explain on the next slide too. Within the decision, the inspector discussed potential options to mitigate against noise and highlighted that noise disturbance was largely coming from instructor's voice, use of heavy gym equipment and music being used within classes at different points throughout the day. The second part of the appeal decision was in relation to trees, and the inspector concluded that the impact to trees was a neutral factor upon assessment of the arboricultural surveys and impact assessments. Consequently, this did not apply any weight to that final decision. So furthermore, taking all that on board, the appeal was ultimately dismissed due to the impact the proposal had on the living conditions of neighbours. So following that previous appeal decision in December and previous application last April, this application before us under this current reference now seeks to address the concerns and points raised by the inspector to mitigate against the impact to amenity by way of noise. So, as I said, I'm going to give a bit of context for those of you that aren't super familiar with the site. But so on the left, you've got the submitted location plan, which shows the red boundary, which is where the gym is located, just here. The blue land is obviously the rest of the All Saints Hotel complex, all on the left. And then on the right, you've got the satellite image taken from Google, which is most up to date. And here you can just see the tarmac of where the gym is located and the roof of the open shelter associated with the gym. Just like the other plan, to the right, we've got the residential estate here, which is the main concern in regards to impact to amenity. So again, just another location plan to show our GIS system, as I mentioned, in regards to the tree constraints on the site. So we're outside of the development settlement boundary and therefore within designated countryside for the All Saints complex. We've got flood zone 2 and 3 towards the south. There's a public right-of-way track shown by the pink here, and the site is located within 2 TPO protected woodlands, which were ordered in 1960 and 1974, which covers the whole All Saints site. So this plan just shows the submitted block plan of the wider All Saints Hotel, and it's the same as the last application. As you can see, the outdoor gym is highlighted in the red hatched area towards the southeast, as I've previously highlighted. So on the screen now is the layout plan for the outdoor gym. So on the left is the previous application, and on the right is the current application, just to show the changes. The main point to take away from this slide is the proposed extension of the acoustic fence, which is highlighted by the green line here. As you'll see in the next few slides and photos of the site, this section of the acoustic fence to the north and east has been extended in height since the previous application, with this section being the new extension in overall length. This suggestion to extend the acoustic fence was made by the inspector within the appeal decision. The applicant has confirmed that the height of the fence is to be just under 2 metres, which is in accordance with the details of the previous acoustic reports, illustrated by the imaginary acoustic line, which is shown in yellow, just to explain where potential sound would travel. And also acknowledging the difference in the ground level between the gym, which is in slightly elevated ground, as opposed to the residential estate on the right, and to show the distance. The approximate distance between the gym and these residential dwellings is about 40 metres. In relation to other amendments to the site, it has been agreed that the opening hours of the gym will be Monday to Friday, 8 till 7, Saturday and Sunday, 8 till 4, and then in the summer months, free 45-minute classes on Monday, Wednesday and Friday, starting at 7 a.m. in the summer, for obviously outdoor classes and workout schedules. Previously, these summer classes were to start at 6:45. However, following this new application, that has been amended to 7 a.m. In addition, the classes have been amended to no longer include previous noisy equipment, such as tyres, punching bags, rowing machines, etc. And there are no plans to increase lighting within the site. The applicant has proposed to implement a silent disco method of operation for participants of the gym. So just to include a brief explanation, this is where participants would wear Bluetooth headphones. The instructor would have their own microphone, they could talk normally, and then no sounds would be transmitted to the headphones. This would then alleviate any shouting from instructors or music being played out loud for participants using the site. So just to move on, again, this is the same slide as last year, but this is the elevations for the open-sited structure. So this is the shaded area for floor exercises, yoga, that sort of thing when the gym is in operation. So just as a quick one, the depth is 9 metres, width is 6, eaves are 2.2, and then to the ridge is 3.8 in height, but the photos illustrate this much better. So as I mentioned, now we've got some updated photos of the gym. So this is the view from the access track, which comes from the car park. You can see the storage container just here, and then the little picket fencing to the front and the acoustic fence. Again, this is just zoomed in. So again, just the entrance into the site. You can see the acoustic fencing and that height in comparison to the picket fencing, and then the open shelter here. Again, this is inside the site looking towards that residential estate to the east. So just seeing where that extended acoustic fence by height has been implemented. And then looking towards the south, so this section here would be where the extension of the acoustic fence is to be sited, just coming up to the corner of the covered shelter just about here. And then this is the other side of the acoustic fence facing towards the properties within Birkdale Court and those residents. So as you can see through the trees, you can see the roofs of some of these properties and the distance and the tree boundary between the residents, and then the back of the acoustic fence and the gym. And again, so at the site, the applicant has installed measures to mitigate against noise, so that this includes a visual noise monitor within the shelter, showing green, amber, red, obviously depending on the level of noise during activity, ensuring that noise is obviously mitigated and lowered where possible, and appropriate signage for users of the gym. And then finally, if this plays, we do have a quick video of the site. So let me just press play. So this is just panning. So obviously you've got the entrance to the site here, panning round towards the north, and that acoustic fencing. I was obviously turning quite slowly, but there's a lot of acoustic fencing, as you can see, and panning round towards the south where that extension is going to be. Background to the open-sided shelter with that noise monitor that I've just shown you, and then background to the storage container and the entrance gate. So moving on to consultation responses for this current application. These are the most up-to-date responses. However, full responses can be read within the report. So we have an objection from Farnham St Martin cum St Genevieve Parish Council, and I put the full objection there on the screen. So as you can see, their main concerns are in relation to the nature of the gym being there in the first place, alongside the impact that the proposal has on trees and local neighbours. Farnham All Saints Parish Council have originally objected, however now have no further comments, and that is in accordance with the gym operating as per the requests of the appeal decision, such as some of the changes which I've described previously in the presentation. For ward members, we've had no formal written representations received, but I believe we will have one being read out in a little bit. So moving on to some other consultations. So for our environmental health officers, they've stated they have no objections to the proposal subject to conditions, and then I've included a summary on the screen. So essentially from an environmental health point of view, with the amendments to the proposal that have been implemented or are proposed to be implemented under this current application, it is still acknowledged that there will be some level of noise and activity from the use of the gym. However, with the mitigation measures in place, it's not considered this will be an adverse or a harmful impact of noise to local residents. Therefore, there is no objections from environmental health. And then moving on just to our arboricultural consultants at Place Services, again, there's no objections subject to conditions. As we've obviously highlighted, the site is in an area of TPO trees, and therefore the monitoring of those trees is a key consideration, and has been undertaken since last year's application and provided under this current application too. There is a condition within the conditions list for a soft landscaping plan to be submitted, and that includes replacement trees, which have been shown on a tree plan alongside the application, and then that would be controlled via condition. We also have monitoring conditions in regards to trees, and then general tree protection conditions, given it's a TPO site. For public comments, we have 9 objections and 1 letter of support, and I've included a summary of those concerns on the screen. Again, many of the concerns relate to noise, impact to trees, the appeal decision being dismissed, and lighting and biodiversity. Support, obviously, on the other side of that is the promotion of health and fitness, mental health benefits of the outdoor gym, and the diversification of a countryside business. Sorry. So on the screen, so just to obviously remind you, these are just some of the changes that have happened to the site as opposed to the previous application. So we've had the extension of the acoustic fence, the utilisation of silent disco equipment that All Saints are, willing to promote with the users of the gym. This would then restrict no music being played or amplified noise or voice. The removal of equipment, limiting the hours of use, as described within the report, and class numbers, and then the permanent noise monitors. In regards to noise, we have agreed with the applicant for a blanket noise condition, which is condition 2 in the report, that there shall be no amplified noise in association with activity of the outdoor gym. So that should cover how the gym decides to operate and the level of noise that's produced from activity. So just to conclude, the matter follows a previously appeal and previous refusal. And while the appeal was dismissed, this does provide a material consideration within the determination of this application. Within this appeal decision, the inspector concluded that the effects on the woodland was neutral, and therefore the main concerns were in regards to impact to amenity. The inspector considered that combination of some of the methods I've just included on the previous slide, plus the extension of the acoustic fence may overcome this previous harm. Private sector housing have agreed with these mitigation measures, and as I've mentioned, there's no objections from them. From an officer perspective, we acknowledge that the gym contributes to the economy of a countryside business, which is in accordance with policy DM43, and therefore there is a public benefit with the use of the gym for health and wellbeing purposes. So furthermore, with the changes of the new application, we are recommending this one for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Right, we've got 2 registered speakers. We've got Councillor Becky Hofsenberger, who's not with us today, but she's submitted a statement, which I will ask Christine to read out in a moment. And then Stuart Turner, the applicant. Welcome, Stuart. So, Christine, on behalf of Councillor Hofsenberger, you've got 3 minutes to read out her statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, due to a prior commitment, I'm unable to attend today's meeting, but I would like this statement to be read out on behalf of 4 sets of residents who live in Birkdale Court near the application. The main objections are due to noise and light pollution that will result from the application. Firstly, noise. We're very concerned that assurances made by the hotel about class timing, the use of silent disco technology. However, we do not believe that this will satisfactorily address the issues of noise pollution. Such equipment is often poorly accepted by gym users and may well be abandoned, especially if music is not used in the class. Moreover, instructors like to shout regardless of the use of microphones. It is also noted that there will be a removal of louder equipment, but how will this be monitored? What will be in place to prevent this equipment from being reinstalled if planning is approved? The gym is in an elevated position and noise will still be an issue. The acoustic fencing will not prevent noise from transmitting. It may reduce it, but the levels of noise will depend on many factors, including wind direction, ambient noise, and type of noise produced. Lighting. There is no mention of lighting in the proposal. However, if the suggested hours of 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. are accepted, then lighting will be required for over half the year. The level of lighting required will disturb both local residents and wildlife. To this end, should the application be accepted, there must be a set of clearly defined conditions applied, which are measurable and monitored, and particularly 1, the extension to the noise fencing which is needed to protect all our properties in Birkdale Court and the maintenance of that and the existing fencing. 2, defined lighting positions to ensure no light spillage. We have had experience in the past of lighting in the winter months shining through into our kitchens and bedrooms. 3, the mandatory use of the silent disco technology. And 4, as discussed in the submitted documents, a post-inspection of the activities to determine whether the control measures are being implemented and are effective. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Christine. Stuart, you've got 3 minutes to address the committee. Just pop. No. And then just wait till it goes red. That's it, you're on.
That's good, sorry. Good morning, my name's Stuart Turner. I'm a joint venture partner at the Health Hub. First and foremost, just want to say that we've learned valuable lessons from the past applications and some operational errors that were made originally. And this new scheme has seen significant changes to what was before. This new application is based on feedback from the Appeal Inspectorate, like we've said. Particular focus has been on protecting the amenity of neighbouring residents and addressing their concerns about noise. We are taking these concerns seriously, and as a result have this revised scheme, which is proven to work in practice. From the time of the original planning decision, while the appeal was taking place until we got that appeal outcome, we did operate the outdoor gym with the substantial changes, including the complete removal of music and noisy equipment. During that time, we hosted 4,000 participants at the outdoor gym, over 300 classes, and we had 0 complaints of noise during that time. This demonstrates not only that our measures are viable, but also that we are responsible and considerate in operating them as well. It's also important to note that the local area is seeing an introduction of other outdoor facilities nearby. Large fitness club offering outdoor gym, outdoor racket sports and outdoor swimming will be opening by the end of the year in very close proximity to residents, closer than what we are in Marham Park. While this is really exciting for the area and the community, it's important that local independent businesses like ours are also given the same opportunity to thrive. Ultimately, we believe that our outdoor gym is a net positive for the community's well-being. Outdoor exercise offers numerous health, social and psychological benefits, and we are eager to provide a space that encourages a healthy, active lifestyle. This facility would serve as a valuable asset to the local area, contribute to the overall quality of life for neighbours. Our application, with the attached conditions, aligns with the relevant policies, and as we know, it will bring immense benefits to the community. We've listened to concerns from neighbours, we've proven our ability to adapt, and now respectfully ask for your support to help us continue to serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Stuart. I think, Councillor Sayer, you were going to recuse yourself from the debate. Councillor Glossop? That's okay. Okay, and because you put your hand up, you were beaten by Councillor Speed. So, Councillor Speed, you're first to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I will be supporting this application. I think the owners have shown considerable flexibility in adapting the previous application. I don't think that light up until 7 p.m. should be a concern for neighbours. The overwhelming benefits and the support that we should be offering to an outfit like All Saints far exceeds somebody being concerned about a light being on at 7 o'clock in the evening. The tree issues have been proven to be negligible, so I see no reason why we should oppose, and I will be voting to support the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. Councillor Glossop, please.
Thank you. I went on the last site visit, so I've got some questions, please. The houses in Birkdale Court, they are very close to this outdoor gym. I remember us walking through a wooded area. So my question is, because I don't know, if you have acoustic fencing, does it actually deal with all of the sound or not? And we've talked about no shouting when they're being instructed and they'll all wear headphones and all of that. But what about when the participants go to the site to take part? They're going to be talking and whatever then. And it's quite early in the morning, I think, at weekends. And then the 9 objections, are those 9 objections all from those houses that are very, very close to the site? That's what I wanted to clarify. And did we say the acoustic fencing would be 6 metres high? That's I need to check. Because some people are nearly as tall as that, aren't they? 6 metres.
Well, yeah. That's 18 feet. That's nearly 20 feet tall, Councillor Glossop.
6.5. Oh, sorry. I'm being accosted here by my colleague.
Yes, the professor next to you just corrected your...
Yeah, because I'm thinking of old monies, so 3.3, 3.3. Now that's 616, isn't it? Yeah, but you could have a 616 person.
It's a very good conversation to be having, but...
Sorry.
Councillor London, please.
Thank you. Allow me a moment to collect my thoughts for a second. Many of the points I was going to ask, I think, have already been made. I have two further ones, which is, with the exception of trees T002, 05 and 06 with the sooty bark disease, did this development require any healthy trees to be removed when it was put in? Where even though planning permission was not granted, as far as I'm aware. So that's the first question. And then the second question is to do with these constraints with regards to silent disco and not having music and sound monitoring. We have in other areas spoken at length about the practicality of planning constraints, and I'm wondering just how practical and enforceable this scheme of work would be, and how do officers propose to enforce this? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor London. I've got Councillor Speed again. Back so quickly, Councillor Speed.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to request that my comments were taken as a proposal to accept. Thank you.
I wasn't sure, but I didn't challenge. So can I, in respect to Councillor Marmay White and Councillor Wadron on my list, I'm just going to make a note that Councillor Speed was recommending approval. Can I see a seconder for that, please? Councillor Chester, but just beat you to it, Councillor Whittam. Yeah, Councillor Chester. At this point, Councillor Chester, did you want to speak?
Yes, please, Chair. I would like to thank the applicant for his single-minded approach in keeping the West Suffolk Planning Office in business with the amount of application.
Is that it, Councillor Chester?
That's it.
I tell the
I'm happy to second. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, back onto the queue. Councillor Marmay White, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it was interesting reading the inspector's decision on the appeal, and I do feel the applicant has addressed most of the concerns that the inspector brought up. However, I do find it disappointing that a business such as the All Saints actually implemented this without planning permission and followed it up with retrospective. Seems to me it shows a bit of a disregard for West Suffolk Planning Committee and one thing and another. But anyway, I live opposite a sports field in Rougham, and I quite enjoy the sounds of things. I don't have the amplified music, not very often anyway, I'm pleased to say, but I can see it would have been annoying on a long-term basis. I'll be interested to see whether people do accept the silent disco, because there was a query about that from the acoustic people in the original application, as to whether people would be happy with that. And yes, I mean, it was disappointing. They just went ahead and took trees down in the beginning and implemented the site without a proper planning application and discussion. But I'm happy to second it, and I would follow it up with vote for approval. Thank you.
I did actually. Councillor Chester has seconded it. So yeah. Councillor Waldron, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite happy to support this motion, but I would like to question the lighting situation. Is it not possible to install down lighting so we don't get lights thrown outside the actual gym area? They are available. I know they cost a few quid, but it would be a situation where it kept everybody happy. You could have your people working and the neighbours not getting their lights in the eyes.
Thank you, Councillor Waldron. Officers, back to you, because I've got no other members in the queue.
Thank you. So Councillor Glossop raised a question in regards to the acoustic fencing and what noise this should mitigate against. So within paragraph 37 of the report, this just clarifies a bit more about the acoustic fence. So just to confirm, the height of the acoustic fence is to be just under 2 metres in height. And that's shown on the pictures on the screen to illustrate how high it's going to be. In terms of what could be heard from participants coming and going from the site, sorry, if I just get my laser pointer, that might be a bit easier. Here's the application site here. We've obviously got the acoustic fence to the north. Oh, sorry, there you go. To the north, east, and proposed to the south as well. Participants enter the gym through the west from the car park. So therefore, any noise, in theory, would bounce back towards the west and not towards the east by the use of the acoustic fencing. And then just to clarify, there we go. So that's what that acoustic fencing looks like, and that's towards the neighbours. Councillor Glossop also mentioned about the objections. I can confirm that those objections were received from residents on that estate towards the east. Councillor Waldron had a query in regards to lighting. There's no details of proposed lighting within this current application. We do also have a condition under condition, she says, condition 8 on page 105, that restricts any lighting to a specific candela and lighting as advised by our environmental health team. So hopefully that clarifies that point too.
And then just a couple of points from me, Chair. Councillor London asked a question about were any healthy trees removed before the gym was installed. This application came about as a result of an enforcement investigation that did relate to alleged loss of some of the trees from the site at the time. And within the report, there is an explanation about us seeking additional replacement trees as part of this permission if it is granted. And then in relation to the silent disco, we do believe we'd be able to investigate and enforce that if it wasn't abided by. We'll soon, I think we will get complaints if the silent disco method isn't used, and we would then be able to investigate that and deal with the condition that we have on the permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So I'm going to move straight to the proposal, if I may, because I've got nobody waiting to speak. So Councillor Speed proposed approval of the application in line with the officer's recommendation, and that was promptly seconded by Councillor Chester. Could I see a show of hands in favour of approval, please? Over to you, Christine.
Thank you, Chair. The vote is unanimous and the application is approved.
Thank you very much indeed, members. Thank you very much indeed. Okay.
Get Councillor Saylor.
Oh, yes, get Councillor Saylor. Yeah. Yeah, we have. We've got, well, this might be them coming in. Obviously, we've got Mike as well, but Mike is... Okay, members, we now move on to the final application to be considered, which is Reed Hall Farm in Chedborough. And Greg is the presenting case officer. So, Greg, you can begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. The application that I'm going to present to you today is located at Reed Hall Farm. The reference is DC/24/0458/FUL. The proposal is for the creation of one dwelling with associated works following the demolition of existing buildings. The application was referred to the committee following a meeting of the delegation panel on the 16th of July 2024. Just to give an indication as to where the application site is, on the left-hand side we have the location plan and the GIS plan on the right-hand side, which shows the development area here, just in context of the settlement of Chedborough. And we have here the location plan, which shows the private access road down towards the site here, which meets the A143 to the northwest. Just switching now to a closer plan on the right-hand side of the screen to give a more detailed makeup of the application site and the surrounding buildings. We have Reed Hall to the north of the application site. This is highlighted in pink due to it being a listed building. To the south and east of this, there are converted barns, agricultural and equestrian buildings. The two buildings which are impacted under this proposal are located here, just to the east of the area marked as pond on this plan. Now, just taking a closer look at this part of the application site here on the existing block plan, we can see that there are two existing agricultural buildings. Both of these buildings have been subject to prior approval applications under Class Q of the General Permitted Development Order. Class Q was introduced in April 2014 and allows for agricultural buildings to be converted to dwellings. The applications for these two buildings were determined in March 23, and it was found that the works proposed were within the requirements and stipulations of Class Q for the conversion of these agricultural buildings to a dwelling house, and this is able to be done through permitted development. The application for the new dwelling seeks the removal of these buildings to facilitate its construction, and we can take a look at this on the proposed block plan now. So here we can see the position of the proposed dwelling following the removal of the existing buildings. The existing buildings are still shown on the right-hand side, so we can see that the proposed dwelling is situated slightly further to the east, and it also demonstrates 3 vehicle parking spaces to the west of the proposed dwelling. And just on the existing dwellings, I'm just going to go through existing buildings. We will just go through the elevations of those. So this is the northernmost of the two, slightly smaller in both terms of footprint and overall height compared to the one to the south, which we'll just take a look at the elevations for now. And now switching over to the proposed elevations for the dwelling, we can see in comparison to the previous slide that these elevations exhibit a similar design and form to the main body of the larger existing building at the southernmost point of the application site. And I will just show you a floor plan as well for the proposed dwelling. So we have living space on ground floor and bedroom accommodation on the first floor. And then just moving to some photographs of the application site. This is the larger of the two buildings to the south, and we're just going to take a small look around there. So we can see this is pointing to a southerly direction where we can just see a partial side elevation on the right-hand side, and is an area in which the proposed dwelling would be. And switching to the other side of the building, looking towards the east, and then moving towards to the northernmost of the two buildings, and then just looking back on ourselves for this one here. Before going through the policy considerations for this proposal, I'm just going to give a brief summary of the representations and comments which have been made during the consultation process for the application. On this occasion, there was no response from the Parish Council. The ward member is Councillor Chester, who is with us today and who I believe is going to speak on the application, so we'll be able to hear from him directly in a moment. There were no formal neighbour representations received during the consultation process, but I note that we have a registered speaker in support of the application today. The consultees for this development have included the Environment Team, Private Sector Housing and Environmental Health, Suffolk Highways and the Conservation Officer. None of these consultees have objected, subject to appropriate conditions. In terms of assessing the proposal, the starting point for us is the relevant development plan policies for the principle of development, which are DM5 and DM27, which relate to development in the countryside and housing in the countryside, respectively. These policies set out the ways in which the construction of a new dwelling in the countryside may be acceptable. In this instance, the new dwelling does not accord with any of the ways set out within these policies, and therefore does not benefit from the principle of development or support from the adopted local development plan, which is the framework in which we are required to make decisions. Notwithstanding this, the first point of the assessment, we are then moving on to the character and amenity, as well as the impact on the listed building to the north. The impact on these areas is considered to be acceptable and would be required in any event for applications in this area, and are therefore considered to be neutral in the planning balance for this application. The proposal being in accordance with these areas is not considered to be sufficient to outweigh the principal departure from the development plan with regards to the principle of development. Similarly, it's considered that the development would be policy compliant subject to conditions with regards to its impact upon highways, landscape features, ecology and protected species at the application site. Acceptability in these areas would also be required in any event and are similarly considered to be neutral in the balance for this application. As has been mentioned, the current buildings at the site, which would be removed under the proposal, benefit from an existing Class Q prior approval. This would allow their conversion into dwellings under permitted development. This legislation allows for a dwelling or dwellings to be created in a location that would otherwise be unsustainable, as it carries the benefit of converting an existing building. A fallback position is a material consideration in the planning balance that can carry weight in favour of a proposal. The amount of weight that this carries is determined by a number of factors and is not the same in every instance. It is not considered in this case that the existing prior approval position justifies a departure from the development plan, as there are no additional benefits associated with the scheme as opposed to the fallback position, and the weight attributed therefore is limited. In terms of concluding, planning law requires us to make decisions in accordance with the adopted development plan unless there are material considerations which indicate otherwise. In this case, the proposed development is a departure from planning policy with the relevant policy considerations for this matter shown on the slide and referenced in the report. In order to justify departure from the development plan, there needs to be other material considerations which weigh in favour of the scheme. There is an extant prior approval for the conversion of the two buildings which have been put forward as a reason for the approval of this development. It is the view of officers that the two buildings within the application site benefiting from a prior approval does not establish the site as a sustainable and appropriate location for a new dwelling, but rather that it accords with permitted development regulations for converting existing agricultural buildings. It has been found that when permitted development and the adopted development plan pull in different directions, that the development plan should prevail, particularly given the framework's imperative that the planning system be plan-led. It is therefore concluded that the proposed development doesn't justify a departure from the adopted plan and has therefore been recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Greg. We've got three speakers on this application. We've got Nigel Oakley, who is a supporter of the application and a neighbour. We've got Councillor Mike Chester, who's a member of the committee, who's declared an interest and will recuse himself after this public speaking. And we've got Oliver Neal. Thank you very much indeed. So in that order, Nigel, you've got 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. My support for this is purely personal.
Nigel, you can sit down because...
Oh, can I?
No, the mic won't pick you up, you see, if you stood up. Get closer to the mic.
I'll start again.
Yes. You're very welcome,
everyone.
sir.
My support for the project is purely personal. I believe that Mr. Neal wishes to move the building a little further off the footprint, which in fact will give my family and his family more privacy, which is a benefit. But also, I had a civil engineering company which allowed me to have the passion of farming the farm with Suffolk horses. Therefore, I've got a very keen interest in wildlife and conservation. And adjacent to the building that Mr. Neal proposes to develop is a pond where over the years I've put a lot of logs and so on to preserve the frogs, toads and particularly grass snakes. And I'm very pleased to say that Mr. Neal's family, the children, are also passionate about the wildlife. And the way I farmed allowed me to have a great variety of flora and fauna. So it is with pleasure that I look forward to Mr. Neil living there with his children, and the next generation will have the privilege of supporting Suffolk and its natural heritage. So that's really all my conclusion of my comments, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much indeed. We've now got Councillor Chester. Sorry to distract you, Councillor Chester, but
Caught me unawares, Chair.
Now, Councillor Chester is speaking in his capacity as a ward member, not as in capacity as a member of the committee. Councillor Chester, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And not as a committee member for reasons I stated under agenda item 4. Armed with the knowledge that our planning policies are crucial in determining application outcomes, I draw your attention to page 156, the permitted fallback position. This application benefits from an extant Class Q approval for residential conversion, which is capable of being implemented. Without Class Q approval, I would not have called this application in. Class Q approval was never intended for replacement buildings, which forms the basis of this application. And as the case officer states in paragraph 48 on page 156, a dwelling being delivered without the benefit of reusing the existing buildings undermines the objective of Class Q. By way of comparison, in 2005, I owned and restored a large 200-year-old storage barn to its former glory, partly for my own benefit, but mainly for his historical and architectural significance. That barn is now a long-designated heritage asset and was worthy of saving. The barn at the centre of this application, agricultural appearance, open-sided, partly of concrete construction and of little architectural merit, lends itself poorly to conversion. A replacement building in a similar style, built from the ground up to a higher standard achievable than under conversion, whilst it's not policy compliant, given the lack of consultee objections and limited impacts, offers a compelling alternative to a situation where residential conversion under Class Q is extant. On a final note, I'm aware that to overturn Class Q is a difficult call legally. Many people were watching the outcome of your decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Chester. Oliver, your turn to adjourn. You've got 3 minutes. Microphone, please.
Okay, my name is Oliver Neal. I'm a first-generation farmer and farm business owner. I purchased Reed Hall Farm in January this year as it adjoins land where my business is based and came with consent for the residential conversion of 2 buildings under Class Q. I since decided that a personal move to the farm would be beneficial for my family due to it being within walking distance of my place of work, but also because of my intention to farm the land and rebuild a number of Suffolk punches that Reed Hall became so well known for. After deciding to move to the farm, I sought advice from an award-winning architect and a heritage consultant to design a far more aesthetically pleasing, sustainable and environmentally friendly dwelling that would sit more naturally within its setting and enhance the character of the site compared with what has been approved under Class Q. I acknowledge and respect that planning policies are in place to protect our beautiful countryside through delivering appropriate development. West Suffolk is the place where I live and work, but no part of me nor my advisors can understand why a proposal that is using better quality materials, improves the overall visual appearance, provides additional sustainability features, and reduces the size and volume of the development in the open countryside would not be favoured over the existing Class Q fallback. My main concern is that policies DM5 and DM27, which are used as reason to recommend refusal, seemingly take no account of the fact that 2 houses can be built under this site under Class Q. Due to the fallback position, this application is not directly comparable with these policies. In case law reference, there are 3 established legal elements required for the fallback position. 1, lawful ability, 2, likelihood or real prospect, and thirdly, comparison between existing consented and proposed. This application adequately deals with all 3. I'll explain. For lawful ability, there is live Class Q consent for the 2 dwellings at this site. Steps have already begun to discharge the pre-commencement conditions, included updated BAT surveys to gain our EPS licence, and contamination consultants have been commissioned. The likelihood and real prospect, the buildings are capable of being converted under Class Q, confirmed by a structural engineer. We are discharging the pre-commencement conditions and we have ample time remaining on the Class Q. It doesn't lapse until March 2026. And in comparison between existing Class Q and the proposed development, The proposed building keeps the same external design and layout of the in situ barn, taking historic inspiration from the wider setting. It offers a reduced number of dwellings, enhances the wider setting surrounding a listed asset being Reed Hall Farmhouse, and provides significant sustainability enhancements. I'm not a developer, but someone wanting to build a house of architectural interest to live in, and it's widely accepted that where the alternative new build proposals offer either enhancement to the setting or a reduction in density when compared to the fallback, the development could and should be allowed to proceed. I urge the committee to fully consider the fallback position of the Class Q, as a development confined to the scope of the Class Q would be detriment to the site compared to what can be delivered under this full planning application. And lastly, I believe we all have a duty as individuals to take opportunities to create lasting legacies, and it would be a huge shame if this application is refused given the benefits it seeks to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Oliver. Right, committee. Oh, yes. Yeah, oh, yes, sorry, yes. Councillor Chester, could you recuse yourself now? Good. Councillor Speed.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a great example of where somebody is trying to enhance the amenity, the area. There's no local objection at all, and we're in danger of letting a policy get in way of making a decision on merit. It seems to me that there's hundreds of barn conversions across Suffolk which are hugely attractive, have made fantastic homes for people within a biodiverse and safe environment. There are no objections from any consultees, no comments from the parish. We have the neighbour in support. So I will be wanting to propose that we accept this application and don't take the officer's recommendation. I think we should be looking to support people when they improve the area, not have a fallback position which doesn't do anything for anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. So I can note that as the formal proposal, yes? Thank you very much indeed. Is that seconded, please? Councillor Whittam, yes. Would you like to speak at this point, please, Councillor Whittam?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I fully understand this queue business, and there is the fallback where those two barns could be converted into two dwellings. I think the proposal is much more superior to that, and I have no problem with seconding.
Okay. So we've got a proposal and second. I just need the reasons, really, to be fair. Can you just reiterate your reason for wanting to overturn the officer's recommendation?
Because I think the application improves the amenity with no detriment to the area, no harm to the area, and I think we ought to take the application on merit as something which is supported locally, and we should be seeking to support people who have ambition and want to enhance the environment they're in.
Councillor Whittam, do you want to add to that, or?
No, but I concur with that.
Concur.
Totally.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Right. On Councillor Waldron, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask a question. Under the new guidance that was brought in just before the election that allows permitted development of certain farm structures without going through the planning process, does this proposal not fall under that new guidance, or is it still outside the new guidance because it's demolition and rebuilding as opposed to restructured existing?
Okay,
and
thank you very much.
Whatever it is, I will support the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Waldron. Councillor Mildmay White, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It is a difficult one, this, because it's quite clearly pushing the boundaries and going against the spirit of the prior approval Class 3, Q3, I mean. And as the officer says, there's no reason to believe it's no longer physically possible or viable to carry out the prior approval application. And it does undermine the objectives of Class Q. On the other hand, I'm inclined to support it because it seems to me it might be better to have one house rather than two. So I'm a bit torn on this one, I must say, because, as you know, I do like to support our policies where possible as a matter of principle, because we have them for a reason. So I don't know. I'm still slightly conflicted on this one, I must say. As Councillor Speed said, there are plenty of very attractive barn conversions out there, and I have no reason to believe that these two barns could not be converted into very attractive buildings, but obviously they would be two as opposed to one family home. So I can understand the reason why this application's come forward. So basically we're talking about a new build in the countryside. Do we have any indication of what the house is going to look like? I mean, there's a sort of picture on the back, but it doesn't really give me much idea. So would an application for a new build house come back to us to be looked at? Or are we just accepting that that's it? Okay. And if it was two barn conversions, what were they going to look like, Greg?
I think if we could just note the question and give, because I've got others that want to speak, Councillor Malmay, if that's okay, and we'll come back to that.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor London, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Looking at this from the sort of the counterfactual side of if the Q conversions had been completed, we then had a couple of houses in the countryside on this location. And this application came up in the same way that we have had numerous times previously of destroying an existing building and building something with greater architectural merit. We would have been happy with that. And therefore, I almost see this as getting rid of the intermediate step of having to build the Q house in the middle to bridge the planning gap forwards. I think that the terms of beauty have been bandied around with regards to the NPPF, but it's still in there as far as I'm aware. And I would say that therefore I could say that this is a more beautiful house than the Q conversions would have been, and has a greater architectural merit. And therefore, on the balance between the two options we have, none of which being the existing buildings, I think this is by far the better quality solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor London. Councillor Dicker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my long history of sitting on this committee, I've had applications similar to this before. And what I remember as well, if we still have these policies, and that is for farm workers, we can allow a new house in the countryside. And I'm sure the gentleman said that they wanted to move in to this new property with his family, and he's obviously a farm worker, though his own farm. So doesn't this get around it by invoking that policy that as he is a farm worker, we are allowed to build a proper new property in the open countryside, or certainly in this area? I really am digging up some memories of things, but I know I had one of these in Dunstall Green in Dalham, and we allowed it. And we were going through all the policies then. So is this any value at all to this debate?
Okay, question noted. Councillor Holder, please.
Myself off. Oh, there we go. Back on. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's really for clarification. We've got two pretty ugly, unused farm buildings, and the pictogram of what they might look like if they're converted were actually not filling me with any love. And taking Councillor London's point of view is about beauty. I think it is in the eye of the beholder, but I take the point. A large conversion of a utilitarian shed, basically, is not the same as a purpose-built family home. You know, reading the officer's report, it's not compliant with our policies. We had great debate about this at the first application, which went on and on. The thing is, I'd just like some advice from the officer we went against the officer's recommendation to approve the applicant's wishes, if it would be a minded to decision or could be accepted today. I don't know. Thank you.
Yes, I was going to have that side conversation with our principal here, but it's a good point to raise. So in the context, there's no other members wishing to speak at the moment.
Greg to do the elevations and then I'll come back on the rest.
So Greg first and then Rachel. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to show on the screen, if it's showing, it is now, what came in under the prior approval applications for the conversions of the dwellings in terms of the elevations. So this is the larger dwelling, the larger building to the south, which has the prior approval. So this is what we were given as the converted building, what it would look like upon completion with the elevations and the floor plans. And I'm just going to go to the next slide, which was for the northernmost building, which was the smaller of the two agricultural buildings, about what that would look like under conversion. And then I'm also going to switch back to the proposed for the new dwelling, which is this one here, just to try and clear up in terms of what it would look like under each different application.
So just to pick up on a few of the other questions that members have raised, Councillor Waldron, you asked about the new agricultural permitted development. I don't have that to hand and I haven't committed it to memory, but I believe that is in relation to what other things can be built in farms that are connected to agricultural development. Obviously, this is an application for a new dwelling, so it's something completely different. Councillor Dickett, you asked about, we have a policy that supports agricultural workers' dwellings. Indeed, we do. We still do for developments in the countryside. That would be where a case is put by an agricultural worker or a farmer that there was an essential need for a dwelling. And if that was assessed to be essential, we would then look at recommending approval, but with a condition that the occupancy of the dwelling should be restricted for that purpose for an agricultural worker. In this instance, we don't have an application that's making that case. This is an application that we're dealing with under the normal countryside policies, but with the fallback position in relation to Class Q. And then I think the last point we haven't answered yet is Councillor Holder asked about the Minded to process. I think in this instance we would invoke the decision-making protocol. I think the debate has given us some good understanding of where members are coming from in terms of what they think is more material to outweigh the policy concerns about DM5. So we would be able to articulate that in a risk assessment report for members, and obviously also have time then to collate conditions if members then debate it further and decide to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So that would be a minded to approval to the proposer and seconder. There's no members wishing to speak. So can I put to the committee? It's recommended for. I beg your pardon, Andrew. Councillor Speed.
It's not a point of order, but I just wonder if I can push back a little on that. Doesn't a minded to infer that there's quite a balanced decision? And I'm not sure there is, and I wonder whether we ought to explore the vote before we know whether it's a minded to, because I sense that there's a decision to support the application on merit, and so I just wanted to push back on the minded to. I think it could be a waste of time.
Yes, you've sparked Rachel into further research. Over to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. The decision-making protocols at the front of the agenda. It's it's not invoked where we think there's a bit of a balanced view amongst members or amongst a debate. It's invoked where there's a concern that it may go to the heart of a significant policy within the local plan, or indeed on occasions where we need to be able to explain the risks to members, and also in terms of ensuring robust and legal decisions are made, that we as officers are articulating what members view as material considerations that weigh or militate against the development plan. And the other reason that we use it is for having the opportunity to write up conditions and recommend conditions appropriately. So in this case, there are some cases where we don't invoke the decision-making protocol. They're generally where there's more of a subjective view taken on something like potentially landscape impact. But here, where we're setting aside DM5, which we talked about earlier as a dominant policy in the development plan, the view is that we should be having a risk assessment report for this vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Councillor Dicker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just to come back on this risk assessments that we do. I think this policy we have regarding risk assessment is excellent. We didn't have it back at the beginning days at Forest Heath, and it was a bit of a Wild West planning committee then. So I very much welcome this. And what it does, it gives the opportunity to, if you're unsure, to go against policy and that, the clarification you get. All it does is we wait another month. Wow. Because regarding our policies, it's very important that we get it right and we don't trample on them unnecessarily, and with the right evidence to do that. So I do welcome this. No disrespect to Councillor Speed, but you're not on here permanently, so we have this. So honestly, no disrespect to you. We have this fairly often. It works very, very well. And it's not about how many members support something or the way it's going to go, because on one of these applications I voted against, I think, one of our policies. It lost, but that was fine because they then voted, as pointed out by the chairman, the other way as it came back and that. And this would have given the opportunity for us to have looked at something if we wanted to not completely agree with our policy. So I don't think there's anything else I need to say. Just something I wanted to get on that. It's the right thing that we're doing today.
Thank you, Councillor Dicker. Councillor London, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a quick question, which is obviously, as this is a house for an agricultural worker in the countryside, and what Councillor Dicker mentioned with regards to other policies, if a modification from the applicant in line with that policy was to come forward between now and us coming back to this council, would that then possibly be able to unblock it as a permitted development?
Chair, it's entirely up to the applicant as to whether they decide to want to put that case forward. It wouldn't be next month if that was going to happen, because we would need to assess a business case and understand the whole business case for the essential need for an agricultural worker. I suspect the fact that we don't have that type of proposal before us is because the applicant's decided that's not his preferred route. But if we'd got something like that, we'd be dealing with a whole different set of policies to assess the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, the member questions is closed because I'm now going to put the proposal to the committee. So it was proposed by Councillor Speed to approve the application. That's a minded to approve. It's turned into the application. It was seconded by Councillor Whittam, and that's contrary to the officer's recommendation of refusal. And we know that will, in its current format, that will return to the committee at a future date. Could I see a show of hands in favour of minded to approve the application, please? And those against, please. Abstentions, please. Okay, thank you.
So that's 11 votes for and 2 against. So that's carried. The application is minded to be approved and will return to a future meeting with a risk assessment.
Thank you very much indeed, Christine. And that brings us to the end of the actual Development Control Committee meeting today. Thank you, members. Thank you very much indeed.